Welcome back, everyone. Can we get a roll call, please?
Maniscalco. Young. Vieira. Carlson. Miranda. Clendenin. Hertag.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Excellent. I believe Chair Clendenin will be joining us shortly. Okay, so we're going to start.
I'm here.
Oh, there he goes. Excellent. We have a full quorum now. If I'm Councilman Vieira, if you'd like to begin with item number 57.
So I want to, before I speak, I want to inquire, is there anybody from staff here responsive to 57? I will wait awkwardly for 10 seconds. Okay, there. So this item has been continued a few times, and speaking with staff on it before, the idea was that staff was going to be here to discuss. This is a very simple motion, which is to have a discussion on the disability accessible park equipment that we're having in South Tampa as well as in the North and New Tampa area, and what the city of Tampa is doing. And I think that's a very important discussion. We had a memo that was sent on it, which states as follows: in response to City Council's motion for staff to report on the rollout plan for inclusive playground equipment, we're unable to report while an active RFQ process is underway, which restricts our ability to comment. And it says that they do ADA equipment and so forth. I'm not looking for any comment on the contract. And I discussed this before with staff. I was trying to look at the larger vision at the South and North Tampa area for playground accessible equipment there outside of the CRA. And I was told, again, it was represented that staff was going to be here today. I found that otherwise. I reached out to the parent source who didn't want them to be here for whatever reason, and I'm still waiting for an answer on that. So therefore, accordingly, until we're able to resolve this, I want to continue this with the request for staff to be here. Again, not a radical request at all. Staff is here for all sorts of things. I mean, waiting hours on end. This was number one on the agenda after lunch, and I just want to know why. That's all, because this is a very important issue. So if I may, it would appear that the next applicable one would be January 22nd. There is one that is on here on January 22nd for staff reports that is going to be bumped, and we will do that. You guys have my word on that. I can't say what it is for reasons, but if I may, I would request this to be on January 22nd. And by the way, if there's a reason why staff can't be here outside of the RFQ issue, let's talk about it. We can talk. That's cool. And then maybe I can even withdraw this. But I do want to talk about this because I think this is a very important discussion for us to have. So that's my motion, if I may, for January 22nd. Thank you.
How do we would have to waive the rules?
And if I may,
I'm just asking.
I'm sorry, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Hearing what the councilman said, with the understanding, you are waiving the rules with the understanding at some point in time, it still will go back to 7 items.
Yes, it will. Yeah, and you have my commitment on that, because there is one item here that we are not going to be hearing on. Take a look at the agenda. You can guess which one it is, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what it is, but okay. So do I have a motion to waive the rules? We have a motion to waive. Okay. So I have a motion to waive the rules and to move item. There was a motion to waive the rules. I made the motion. I think it was to. But we still have to waive the rules because our rules are 7. So we're going to move item 57, file number CM 25-17928 to January 22nd and waiving the rules. And
First as well, because
putting it first on the agenda
Under staff reports.
Okay, so I have a motion and I have a second from Councilman Carlson. Mr. Shelby, do you want these types of, so these can be voice votes, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councilmember Carlson, you have item number 32 you pulled.
Yeah, thank you. There are, came up faster than I thought. There are 2 things here that I wanted to mention. One is the document itself. If you go through the long document, and I've got it tabbed, and I can give you guys copies of it if you want. But one on page, in the beginning of the document, they say that the agreement allows continuation of the project in the best interest of the citizens because they're doing public engagement, which is, we know they haven't done extensive public engagement. Number two, in here, I won't go through the exact numbers, but in here it talks about how your grantee represents and warrants that all statements and information provided to DEP are current, complete, and accurate. This includes all statements and information in this grant. We know that that's not true. An attorney representing one of the sides talked about this morning, as I've consulted other attorneys and folks in the community. They're concerned about us approving something that is not accurate. There's a $54 million number that we are obligating ourselves to today, and we've only obligated ourselves so far to $7 million, not to the overall project. And we don't even know what the final configuration is. We don't know how much it's going to cost. Privately, folks are telling us that it's $100 million or so, and I don't know why 65 million or whatever is still going around. The other thing is at the end, in the attachment, it says that, attachment, and then under number B, it says that it has to be done by, or not B, but anyway, anyway, in it, it talks about how it has to be completed within a year, and we know it's not going to be completed within a year. The community, folks in the community, this is not my word, but folks in the community are saying it would be fraud for the city to approve something that we know is not true and accurate. I'm not going to vote for something that's not true and accurate. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, Andrew's got some slides up there. I also want to mention real fast, in the summary, it does not include the name. It does not include the name of this project. It should have been continued for that purpose by itself. Also, the administration changed the name of it without telling the community, which they shouldn't have done. I also want to mention that Vic Bede, we've got a transcript of Vic Bede a year or so ago said that this project would only help in a 4-inch storm, and Milton was 11.5, and then their excuse is like, well, nothing can anticipate everything. Okay, but also we're not going to protect anybody in the next 4 years, so everybody's going to continue to flood. But if you look at, it's been represented, there's one person in Parkland Estates who's been telling people in Palmacia Pines that this is somehow good for them. Every engineer I've talked to, including folks in and around this project, says that this was a side project that somehow has turned into a big project. We know it's barely going to help the neighborhood, and it's not going to help Palmacia Pines. If you look at this slide, maybe we can show this slide. It's June 5th, 2025. It shows that, I don't have the slide before this, but before this slide in June, the configuration did not include anything in Palmacia Pines. So to try to include, as a political move, to try to include Palmacia Pines, they put configuration there. Can you put the next slide on, please? And what you see now in the slide, in the picture to the right, November to present, they've taken Palmacia Pines out. Palmacia Pines, even though some folks in Palmacia Pines believe this is going to help them, they're screwed by this project. It's not going to help them. What you see in the slide is dotted green lines, and if you look at the legend to the bottom, it says Phase 2. And what everybody is saying in around this project is that Phase 2 is not included in the $100 million. It's not even projected as to what the timeline is. It's going to be more than 4 years. Palmacia Pines is totally screwed by this. Can you go to the next slide? Also, there are one or two people in Parkland Estates that say, oh, well, we've been talking about this for 10 years, blah, blah. This city council has only been talking about this for a couple years. It's not, there's all kinds of misinformation, which is unfortunate, and I don't know if the administration is helping with this or not, but it's disappointing that that's happening. The reality is that we only have documents that we can find back to 1988, but if you look at that red highlight, all the way back to 1988, and then again in 2008, it was highlighted that the corner of Habana and Horatio was the biggest flood area in this whole basin. The question is why, the folks that come here and say their houses got flooded, why did the city allow them to build those houses? Why didn't the city cause them to elevate it? It may be an ex-flood zone, but that's only counted for water that's coming in from the outside. Show the next slide, please. What the red on the left shows is red is high elevation, and you see that big spot of yellow in the middle? What the big spot of yellow in the middle shows is that the corner of Horatio and Habana is a bowl. It's the bottom of a bowl. It's just like the area behind on Coachman, behind Stovall. The reason why this area floods is because it's in a bowl. That corner is the worst in the region. You can look at this elevation study and see they're not just getting 11.5 inches from what hits on them, they're getting it from the whole area. And the solutions that have been put in have not worked, and the city's been studying them for 40, 50 years and has not done anything. If you look at the one on the right, you see the majority of people that were hit were in Palmacia Pines. This is not a choice about whether we hurt the restaurants on Howard or not. It's whether this is the right solution. Everybody around this knows this is not the right solution. They may not say so today because for whatever reason the administration wants this project. But the reality is that if we change the configuration of this, Palmacia Pines will not get screwed. Otherwise, Palmacia Pines is going to flood in the next 4 years, and they're going to flood after that because they're not even included in this project. They're not included till afterwards. And we know that there needs to be a Palmacia Pines project. What happens is Palmacia Pines floods, and then the water pours into Parkland Estates. So what the city's going to do is put a straw in Parkland Estates, allow Palmacia Pines to flood, and then pull the water out of Parkland Estates. That's unconscionable. How could we do this? Again, this is about exactly what the community was saying. How do we save homes? How do we potentially save lives? It's by creating a Palmacia Pines project. And the city, we've got lots of documentation. The city has known this since at least 1988 and hasn't done anything. This is not a political fight. This is a fight over what's best for our citizens. We need to focus on what's best for them and spend the money correctly. Besides the fact that if we're going to raise property taxes or sales taxes to pay for this or anything else, the public deserves to know that in advance. And we have 20 or so areas in South Tampa that got flooded, and we don't have enough money to pay for the rest of them. What else do you have there? I've got just another document from 2008 that shows.
1988 as well.
And what? 1988.
There's a 1988 drainage study.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of studies. I'll just hand this stuff down the line. There's lots of documentation going all the way. I would encourage you all to look at this. This is not about whether we trust engineers or not. What is the best solution? And there are all kinds of conspiracy theories about why this is happening. And do you like steak versus helping people? The reality is, I want to help people not flood. A Palmacia Pines project is the right project. Palmacia Pines is in that bowl. Can you just put that the red map up one last time? We know what the problem is. You can easily see it. You can easily see the problem right here. Palmacia Pines is in a bowl. If we pull the water out of Palmacia Pines or prevent it from getting there, and the city should not have allowed them to develop those houses there in the first place.
Okay, Councilman Vieira, and then we have Brandon Campbell here.
Yes.
And Yuan Lee as well.
I wrote, just out of interest, I wrote this down during public comment. My question was, for the grant that we're talking about here, somebody had, I don't recall who said it, I'm not calling anybody out, but really I'm curious, and I probably should have called staff on this during my break. If we accept this grant, are we married to the project? Let's say the project is X amount of dollars, and 5 years from now, inflation goes crazy and it's another $20 million. Are we married to the project, the gross amount of the project?
Brandon Campbell, Mobility Director for the city. I did want to talk real quick about, in response to that and just in general, about the action that is on Council's agenda today, just to clarify a little bit about what is being asked for approval for. There is a document that is on base, which is the previous grant agreement that was voted on, approved, and executed in early 2024. And then there's the document today that is the revision to that initial agreement. There are some attachments to that that have some revisions to the language that are administrative in nature. But fundamentally, the standard grant agreement, which references the cost, the name of the project, and several of the details that have been discussed both in public comment and in other discussions. Those are part of the original grant agreement from 2024. I printed out a copy, but it's also on base if you care to reference it. Today, the approval being sought is for a one-year extension from June of this year to June of next year. Of course, we're likely to be back here about this time next year requesting another extension to that grant. But fundamentally today, it's a request for a no-cost time extension to that existing grant that was executed in 2024. No other new commitments are being made by today's resolution if it's adopted.
Yeah, so and again, it's an extension, and I believe it was, well, I'm not gonna guess at who said it, but that's my question, which is, it's an extension. If we ultimately do accept this grant, does that marry us then to the project in terms of if the costs of it are expanded significantly and we are then committed to an exceptional amount of additional dollars?
So if the project was not to move forward, whether at the approval of the GMP or some other circumstance, the circumstance doesn't change from today's action. So we've committed to the project, to executing it as part of that grant agreement. Of course, that commitment to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is something that, should the GMP not be approved, something like that, is a commitment that would be nullified at that time. Today, it's truly, it's not an additional commitment, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and by the way, to the folks, I think Mr. Delapart was there, and in my profession, he's what we call a made guy. So just seeing him up there, he's a excellent attorney, obviously. But yeah, no, I'll follow up with more stuff, but thank you.
If I may as well, I know that one of the items that he had brought up was the slip report. In the attachment that is updated, there's additional reference to that slip report, but it was part of the 2024 grant agreement. It's been on our radar. It's due 30 days prior to construction, and so I don't anticipate a timeline challenge due to the requirement of that slip report.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just for the public's information, grants. When we apply for a grant, I would assume you apply for them way before you start construction, not after you start construction. Am I correct?
Generally, yes. There are opportunities to apply in the midst, though, as well.
But the general fact is that most of them you apply way before you give what the statistics are and what you think is going to cost and so forth and so on.
Correct.
The estimate that we have now is in the $55 million range or close to that. And I've heard 100 million, I heard more than 100 million. What are we looking at? And we also got to realize that if it's 55 million today, what is it going to be 2 years from now? So if you're looking at an extension for a year before you get started, it'd be another year and a half and so forth and so on, a year and a half in total. So there's got to be 2 or 3% somewhere in there for inflation or something to that effect.
Sure.
I'm not saying there is, but normally that's what happens in America.
Yes, with the contract type that we have executed with Kimmons and Atkins, as
So then is it the figure of 100 million that I hear on the street everywhere? Is that an exaggerated figure or not?
It will be closer to that than it is to 65.
I just want the
We
public
don't
to
have the
know. I want it
GMP
to go
yet.
in, I want to clear the table. I don't hold anything back. And I want to make sure that the public understands where we're at. Now, I've heard from many sources, not only from here, from this dais, from other sources on the street, you're not going to cure a damn thing by doing that, because that's what they hear. However, I'm not an engineer, but there's no way I or anyone can say Florida is never going to flood, because it is going to flood. You don't have flooding in other states because they have mountains. But what happens then, you have flash flooding that takes half a town away. So I don't know if a Category 1 hurricane is going to hit here and sit out there for 2 hours like it has somewhere in the Carolinas, as it did somewhere in New Orleans years back, and wipe out the whole city. And that's happened before. So whatever I vote on, either way is not guaranteed 100%. Nothing in life is guaranteed 100%, except one thing, death.
And taxes.
Well, taxes, no, because they're going to do away with sales tax, and I want to do away with ad valorem tax and sales tax and income tax, so everybody be happy for 15 seconds. So, I mean, that's what I like to do, because we're silly in government. We talk around circles, and I'm not talking anyone specific. I'm just saying you go around circles, and then by the time you finish, it costs you 10% more because you didn't do a damn thing for 5 years. So I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to know, it's 55 now, and sooner or later, it's going to be more. But I want to make sure that that more is within the range of 1 or 2%.
So when we get to the guaranteed maximum price, which we anticipate bringing before you late summer, early fall, that is the guaranteed maximum price.
The next question is this, or the next statement is this. If we vote to pass the grant for another year, and at the end of that year, things are consummated in that area, that doesn't mean that that the project is going to go. That means that the grant was carried over, so you can have a base of getting another 10 point some million dollars towards the total cost. Am I correct?
Yes.
That does not say that, because that's got to be a separate vote. Moving the money over doesn't guarantee the project.
Correct.
That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Councilwoman Young.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
So just so I can get some clarity for myself. So I'm just reading the memo here. So we have the 10 million in the grant funding, and with a $54 million match from City of Tampa. That would be correct.
That's what was obligated in that initial grant agreement, yes.
Okay. And so what I just heard you say is that the cost of the entire project is probably going to be much more than the 54, be closer to the 100.
It will
yes?
be certainly higher than that 65 that is the total in the grant
Okay.
agreement.
So then, if we have to provide the match already of the 54 million, then where would saying if it's going to be 100 million, the other 50 million, where would that come from?
So in some ways that is to be determined, but I do have a friend here that might be able to talk a little bit more intelligibly about the budget amount.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. Dennis Rajero, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, ma'am, it's a great question. And as you heard the director say, some of that is to be determined. We simply don't know at this time. One of the main options we have discussed with Council previously, and that is about $20 million worth of existing debt funding for the Lower Peninsula project that is no longer needed. So you've got the $10 million in play here for this grant. You got the $54 million that was the match. As the director said, it's about $65 million. It's going to be more than that. But we do have, again, the $20 million in play that we are prepared to bring to council to make a decision on that sometime in the future. We have some other potential options, the community investment tax we have talked about. We have talked about the community development block grant for disaster recovery. Nothing hard and fast on that, but again, that is the $700-ish million grant the county received following the two storms. We are going to get some significant amount from that. There's much water to be crossed before we can commit to that, either the amount of funding or the amount of funding for this project, but it is a big opportunity out there that we're hopeful for. I hope that answers your question, but right now probably the biggest target for us in terms of meeting the discrepancy in available funding would be that $21 million for the Lower Peninsula.
Okay. So essentially, we're looking at about $100 million right now for the project.
We don't know yet.
Or we don't know yet.
We don't, yes, as the director said, we don't have the guaranteed maximum price, but yes, I don't think you'd be too off base presuming it's going to be, as he said, well in excess of the $65 million figure.
And then with the investment tax, so that would be, I'm assuming, like a tax, like City of Tampa taxpayers have to pay?
It is I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes here, but we have an existing sales tax. The county does, the community investment tax. Recently, the voters approved an extension or renewal of that tax, which takes effect next December. And as part of that plan, we have submitted a number of priorities associated with what we anticipate getting from that. It's about a 15-year tax. We think it'll probably be about $700 million-ish for the city, and we've submitted a preliminary plan. We have some flexibility as to what we do with that money, and we've made it very flexible. In other words, we have a large amount for mobility. We have a large amount for parks and recreation. We have a large amount for public safety. It would probably, I won't say probably, it would take some reprioritization of what we've discussed already, we being the city, the mayor and city council, but it's a $700+ million funding anticipated over 15 years. That is in place right now.
Okay, Councilmember Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I don't like spending money that I don't have, and I know we bond stuff and we finance stuff, but that's how people get in trouble. You know, like the friend that used to tell me, just trade in your car every 2 years and get a new car. It's just an extra $50 a month. It's another $100 a month in your car payment. Looking at the interest, you never get out of debt that way, right? So there's a lot of political uncertainty. It's okay to borrow and it's okay to have debt. But in these political times, when Tallahassee is going to call for a special session on property taxes, how much revenue are we going to lose? When we look at the CIT tax renewal, that's a 15-year renewal that, as you already mentioned, starts off at the end of the year, how much of that CIT is going to be committed to other projects? I've asked that question about the police annex on Howard Avenue, like how much can we use from that, if we can use anything, so we don't have to bond and borrow so much. The price escalation on this project, we don't know. It could be 100 million, could be 80 million, could be 75 million. We don't know. The uncertainty there. I voted against the millage proposal back in 23. If there ever comes a time, because this mayor is reaching the last 15 months and we go into a new administration, I don't know who the next mayor is going to be. What are they going to, well, you never know. Mayor Miranda, you know, I'm not going to throw names out there. But what's going to happen from the Tallahassee level, what's going to happen from the federal level. I mean, every day is breaking news. All day is breaking news. And we don't know what we don't know, and we know what we don't know, whatever the saying is. But it's you know, it's interesting looking at these documents going back to 1988 and looking at Horatio and Habana as severe. A great question was brought up by Councilmember Carlson. Why were these houses allowed to be built to begin with when we had this information from 38 years ago? Number one. Looking at the City of Tampa Cleveland Street Basin Master Plan update, where are the Horatio Street projects, which I know in looking at this updated map, you do have a little section of the broken dotted line at Horatio. But here it says Cleveland Street, in order to alleviate or offer flood protection associated with a 100-year, 24-hour storm event. You know, where's that? Again, you know, when I voted for this, and I tell this story all the time, September 1st, 2016 was a very difficult vote in order to raise fees and add a new fee regarding stormwater. $251 million of that, in order to soften the blow, because I killed it the first time and then I brought it back, was $20 million in CIT funding to lessen the burden on the taxpayers. And now the costs are going up. We don't know how much revenue we're going to lose regarding the property tax situation. And I don't want to be in a position where we have to raise the stormwater fee, raise the millage, do something. I mean, it's not because next year is a political year. It's about what is the right thing to do for the taxpayers. That's how I look at it. You know, I mean, people tell me things all the time. What I want at the end of the day is to sleep at night knowing that I did the right thing for the people in the city of Tampa. We can address these flooding problems in other ways. I know we've talked about different routes, different conceptual designs. We've talked to engineers. We've heard from legal minds from both sides. Councilmember Vieira said a made guy. When he says that, it's a highly respected individual that knows what they're talking about. You know, the person that you go to for advice and information. But in closing, I have a lot of concerns here. And again, you know, I've been here from the inception of the stormwater, not the maintenance, but the newer assessment from 2016. And if it's going to be continued escalating costs, or we're going to spend all the money and not be able to have money to address the rest of the city, that's also concerning. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay. Chair Clendenin, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Hello. Brandon, Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Question for you, in line with the previous, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. Because if you were to ask me right now, you know, and of course we're talking a lot theoretical what this cost is going to be. If it's going to be $100, my vote, $100 million, my vote would be no, right? But the vote that's before us today, doesn't commit us to the project beyond the design that we've already committed with $8 million. Is that what we committed earlier?
It does not establish any new commitment to the project. It only extends the timeline for meeting the commitment we've made.
Okay, new commitment. If we voted for this, what, are we committed to something?
In a manner of speaking, we are committed to FDEP to execute on the grant, but that commitment does not change based on the extension today, if that makes sense.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but when I hear what you're saying is that if we vote on this today, and our intent would be, if this project is to have gotten to the point that we just can't reasonably afford it, that this is our escape, this is our moment of escape. We let this thing expire so that we're not committed. Is that correct?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, though, is that if we have some concern that this thing has cost escalated to the point, because again, in concept, I support the project, right? But and I support a lot of things, but unfortunately, so many things we can't afford. If this thing has cost escalated to the point that we can't afford it, that this is a decision point time just to rip off the Band-Aid, say no, and this gives us an opportunity to escape that commitment so that we're not committing the city to continue the project at any cost.
I would say that is a fair characterization. However, I would also add to that, in the next 60 days, we'll have a lot of discussion about both the project specifics and the GMP that we anticipate. I know that we will be coming back on the 29th as part of our major projects update, or the Grade 8 project presentation, and we'll have additional details. We are continuing to advance the design and to refine the documentation for the project. So I do believe that there will be a chance for a more complete sharing of details within the next month or so.
If,
I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't absolve my concern that if we approve this today, we're still going to be committed. We're still going to be committed. This seems like well, for lack of not get out of jail free, because we've already committed to the design part, but to stop, this seems like one opportunity to stop the bleeding if the ultimate goal is not to spend, in excess of $100 million on this project.
I mean,
Yes.
if I could expand and perhaps clarify and hopefully not confuse the issue. Further to your point, Councilman Clendenin, you heard the director say, I believe even Councilman Carlson said, we anticipate around this time next year we'll be up here again asking for an extension. Do we not? So if there is a way out, so to speak, by not approving the extension, council will have another opportunity in a year, because this project is simply not going to happen in a year. What I can say from a dollars and cents perspective is not approving this doesn't necessarily end the project. The project can still be funded from other funding sources, but not approving this will end the opportunity for a little over $10 million in funding for this project. Does that make sense? Was I clear?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Mr. O'Hara, but there still seems to be a little bit too gray in there. I mean, my intent when after listening to you all and looking at the documents and the understanding of this was, I was going to vote to approve this, feeling that it was just a continuation of something we'd already agreed to, and that we're still going to have a decision point coming before us for a yes and no. And this is what happens. What I'm hearing in these answers is that that's a gray area. That decision point's a gray area. That sometime, and I know you're saying like a year from now because it's not going to come out of the ground, but absent that opportunity, it seems like this is a commitment point that I did not anticipate this was going to be a commitment point.
So, Councilman Clendenin, I have a couple of questions that might help clarify it for you. So,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Campbell, why do you have to keep coming to us once a year for this?
Generally, they grant extensions 1 year at a time.
So they only grant an extension 1 year at a time. This is it. This is the way that they run. So we have to do it under their rules. So quite frankly, right now, we could just say we don't want to do it. I mean, we can just give the money back anytime we want. That's kind of the way a grant works. You don't have to approve grant. You don't have to take the grant money. In fact, we've all debated whether to take grant money in the future. And then on that note, I also want to know how many times, is there a limit to the number of times we can amend this?
I don't know if there's a limit, but I do anticipate being able to extend it through the duration of our timeline.
Everything goes smoothly. When do you expect to actually start this project? When would you get shovels in the ground if there are no stops, no anything?
I think we would have shovels in the ground late this year.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Yuan Li, Stormwater Services Director. We did a projection of the timeline. I'm going to show here from about a month ago, and we are currently in the 30% design, as you all know, and we are nearing the end of the 30% design, and then we'll do the continue the design till sometime in August and come back to the council for approval of the GMP in the summertime, and we continue the design probably by the end of this calendar year, and we start the construction.
And it says here on January 2026 that you're going to have a public meeting, pre-construction public meeting. Do you have a date for that yet?
And I think that's related to the Waterman upgrade. I
Oh,
saw,
okay.
there.
Oh, I see. I apologize. I didn't see the first line. Water main pre-construction
correct.
public
We
meeting.
anticipate have the 30% design to the general public probably the end of February.
Okay, so a meeting at the end of February to talk about that. So a couple of other things. Councilman Maniscalco talked about why we built houses. And from my understanding, those houses were built in the 20s. So they were already there.
But there are a lot of newer.
Not the townhomes.
Yeah, there are, well, I mean, we're talking about,
Potential.
we're talking about just Parkland Estates. A lot of those houses were there. And I do think that people here talked about, we got a lot of emails about cost. And the other thing I really just want to mention is there was a giant cost to the people who lost their homes and had to rebuild, and the giant cost if that happens to happen again. And ultimately, the city's responsible for taking away stormwater. It's our job. If it's too expensive, we have to find a way, but ultimately, it's our job. We're going to have to do the same thing in Forest Hills. We've already talked about that, already working on that, but it's the city's job to do that. Buying every single one of these houses, we can't afford to do that either. So it is certainly a debate, but the debate is how we solve the stormwater. To me, it's not if, because if is not an option. This is a job of the city. I'm sorry that we're at this point, that we have to come back every year to talk about this, but this has to be done. I don't see any other way around it. I know we're going on to round two. For round two, we're going to do 2 minutes. So I saw Councilmember Carlson's light first.
Yeah, I would just like to say I agree with you, Madam Pro Tem Chair. It's not a matter of whether we do something. We do need to do something. But all the science shows that we need to do a Palmacia Pines project, and we need to fix the Concordia outflow, not go down a new route when the systems we have are broken. I'm not going to have time to have my questions answered, but the one question is the $20 million. If we knew that there was $20 million left over, that should have come to City Council, and we should have been able to decide where it goes. There are many neighborhoods like Concordia that haven't had maintenance in decades, where the culverts are falling apart, and they need help too. There are lots of people that flooded. We need to figure out what's the highest and best use of the money if it's available. One of my questions is, and the same thing with CIT.
Councilman Carlson, you can ask questions and they stop the timer and they answer them for you.
The same thing with CIT. The question is, Mr. O'Hara, what's the maximum amount that we can get to before we have to raise taxes? and you're gonna pull from CIT and all these other, but the public deserves to decide where CIT is going, because it can be spent on fire trucks and fire stations and police facilities and other things. So why would the administration just move it without letting the public have a choice about where that money's gonna sit? And then at what point are we going to have to raise taxes?
When you say raise taxes, sir, just for a clarification, you're talking about property taxes, the stormwater improvement assessment? Or?
Well, either one. It sounds like you guys are moving, I know the administration doesn't like the term shell game, but that's what it sounds like. We're gonna pull from here and here and here and not really tell the public where it's coming from until after it's over. But it's clear that the city does not have $54 million, right? There's not existing, unless you pull from some other fund, there's not $54 million in stormwater, correct?
Correct. Although I can say at this time, there is no intention of raising either of those for this particular project. In answer to the community investment tax question, you're absolutely right. Appropriating funding from the CIT for this project will take a council decision and dialogue with the community, because the tentative plan for that funding, 700+ million, I mean, it's widely available. It's been adopted by the city council. It's been adopted by the county commission. It's on the web. It would be a dialogue and further decision about what to do with that funding. We cannot do that unilaterally.
Yeah, the other thing is that the one public meeting the administration had on this project, it was a one-way, it was asymmetric. It was one-way communication. Here's what we're gonna do. Anybody who disagrees with us, screw you. We don't care that Palmacia Pines is gonna flood. We're just gonna do that. I wonder, this requires us to guarantee that the information here is complete and accurate, and you're only at 30% design. I don't know how we can do this. I think we need to continue this till after the 60 days. We have more information, because I don't feel comfortable signing something that I don't believe is complete and accurate. Thank you.
Okay.
If I can
Go right
just
ahead.
speak to that, I don't know, and maybe off the top of my head, maybe you do, whether we have a 60-day window to make this decision from the grantor's perspective. We can find out if someone doesn't know right now, but I don't know that we have a 60-day window.
We can further confirm with grants team, but as far as I know, the expression date is June 30th this year. And normally we consider advancing this one as early as possible, because they're back and forth and approval and signature those time. My opinion is probably we can still be in the window if we come back after the workshop, if that makes sense.
And I'm gonna ask you to state your name again, and then please state your name at the beginning.
Yeah, Yuan Li, Stormwater.
Okay, and it looks like Mr. Vasky is up to speak.
Justin Vasky, Legal Department. I spoke with one of the grant analysts, and sometime in March, we need to have this wrapped up.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Okay, so we're, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Councilman
Madam
Miranda.
Chair. You know, hundreds of millions is a lot of money, and the enterprise fund is the easier way to do it. When those forests that they have to spend their money, where they get it from, they gotta produce it. You spend over $100 million in water, and the director's here, you spend over $100 million in two-story treatment plant, you spend over $100 million in the refuse energy plant. More than that, I guarantee it was $100-some million each. And you know what? Not a peep was said, not one peep. And all that was bonded. Am I correct?
Much of it was, yes, sir.
So then, but they make the revenue to pay for it, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So we don't have to. The general fund is the one that's getting screwed in a way, and I'll tell you how. First of all, we produce 31% of the sales tax in Hillsborough County CIT, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
What do we get back, 20%?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't take a mathematician from Jefferson High School to figure that out. So when I look at these things and I understand what's going on, there's a lot of things that could change in 5 months or 2 months, but not to move the money from this grant that is a gift from the state government. It's the same thing as the bullet train giving $7 billion to the state of California because, oh, we don't want to do it. We can go further and still kill the project if we really wanted to. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So what's the danger?
And if I may, I would add to that, just again, so we're all on the same page, and I always want everybody's eyes wide open. This particular grant funding has already been appropriated and is part of the city's budget. Unlike, for instance, the 20 million, which would require an appropriation, this is already budgeted.
And I've heard, not from only here, from on the street, the hospital had something under the ground, and this busted, and this happened, and the other problem had this, and the other. So it was a complex of more than one problem when this flood happened. So now they say that we fix this, we can't fix the Pines area? I don't. That's it. My time is up.
Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
So going back to this 1988 Cleveland Street Basin drainage study where it says, you know, the areas that are severe, I went to school at where the Greek church is at on Swan in 1992 to 1998, right? Where the entrance to Parkland Estates was open at the time at Armenian Swan. Now it's closed off. And that neighborhood has changed tremendously. Yeah, there are older historic homes, but it looks little to how I remember it, right? When it would rain heavily, our football field, soccer field would flood, and I'd go and catch tadpoles. The water would, you know, it was a basin, it was a bowl, it was a field. But so much construction has happened and so many changes since I started at school there in 1992 that it's not even recognizable. The apartments weren't there. Howard and Swan was completely different. I mean, just so much impermeable surface that has made it worse. And I bring this up because in 1988, it already shows, and it was known, severe flooding, severe, and yet so much construction was allowed. I got here in 2015, so this predates me even being here, and so many changes come to the neighborhood that I think has exasperated the situation and made it worse without really addressing, you know, knowing that there's flooding, knowing that it's severe to moderate in some sections, looking at this chart, yet we keep building and taking away that permeable surface. You know, there's less green and more concrete. And now you see how the Soho area, Palmacia Pines, how it's changed significantly then. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Chair
Councilwoman
Brogan.
Young. Oh, and then I'm sorry. So Councilwoman Young and then Councilman Clendenin.
So, well, I want to say recognizing that I think Pro Tem Chair Hurtek, Councilwoman Hurtek, made a really good point that it is important, and it is something that that needs to be done. We know that stormwater is a very big issue, and flooding is a very big issue in Florida. So I have just a couple of additional questions. So I know that if I'm thinking back to, I remember when COVID happened, and, you know, there was, you know, some money that, you know, businesses and nonprofits, people could apply for to help their businesses to, you know, to pay their employees for the time, whether they had to be shut down or something. Have we thought about anything like that in the event that there are some businesses that, you know, go through, you know, some serious changes or may lose their business or may lose staff? Is there anything that we have in place possibly for that?
That's a good question. I'll have to circle back to council on that. But what I can say off the top of my head, I mean, we're very familiar, obviously, with what happened, you know, with the pandemic and the substantial federal funding that we received and state funding. The magnitude, I think, of what would need to be considered for a scenario like that, I think it would entail outside funding. I don't think the city would, I mean, I don't want this to be a final answer, but my thoughts are I don't think the city would have the resources to do anything substantive enough to make a difference, in other words.
Is there another type of grant that we could apply for specifically for that?
I believe there are, and we will, I mean, we are very aggressive and have been very aggressive for the last couple of years in terms of our pursuit of outside funding, other people's money, grant funding, and we're always looking for opportunities, and we'll always, you know, pursue them if it's in the city's interest. I'll make a note of that and see if we can get a little more specificity on available grant funding for that purpose.
I know, of course, it won't be, you know, if it's, you know, COVID was a very different time. I'm sure we all want to forget, but just thinking about that, you know, line of thinking of, you know, helping some of those businesses and you know, organizations out. And then my next question is, I've heard a lot about, you know, alternative, you know, options or, you know, just, you know, simple maintenance. Is that like completely out of the question? Like, we know for sure that is something that will not help or alleviate the flooding in this area.
I can chime in on that just briefly. We have Brandon Campbell, Mobility Director. We have considered alternatives, including some of those additional alternatives that were brought to us by the South Howard Business Alliance, and have concluded that the project in front of us is the best option.
Okay. And it's 4-phase project, correct?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
It's 4 phases, a 4-phase?
So
project?
the construction itself will start at the downstream end at the Bayshore outfall and move upward in short segments. I would guess it's more than 4, but I'm not sure exactly what that phasing plan will be until we get a little bit more information from the contractor.
Okay, Board Member Clendenin, or Chair
Thank
Clendenin,
you.
sorry.
No, good, all good. Mr. Campbell or Mr. O'Hara, whichever. So today we have before us a vote on the date change and the extension. I'm still not clear because I'm hearing a lot of wiggle room words that leaves too much gray area. I need an absolute, because I agree with Councilwoman Hurtek's assessment that it is our responsibility to remove stormwater, but of course we have challenges all over the city, and at what cost, and we always have to balance the needs versus the cost, and we can't afford to do everything. But so if this project comes back to us, and let's just use the $100 million figure, if this comes back to us at $100 million, so right now we've only committed to $8 million. If it comes back to us at $100 million, if I accept this grant today, can we say no to the $100 million as the maximum price?
I'm sorry, you're asking whether the guaranteed maximum price vote supersedes this? Is that the question?
Well, my question is, so as far as commitment, if we say yes to this and extend this and allow this, and I understand we previously committed to this, and now that it's expiring, if we accept this, are we committed so that if this guaranteed maximum price comes in at $100 million plus, are we still going to have an opportunity to say no, or is this one of those votes that it says, well, you voted for it?
You would have the same opportunity. I anticipate you having the same opportunity that you have today, should you wish to reject the next extension, if that makes sense.
I see Gene Duncan just logged on. Without penalty?
I don't know if Gene wanted to say something. I would say at least.
Chair, and the chambers recognizes me. I'd be happy to weigh in.
Yes, is that okay, Councilman Clendenin?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, Ms. Duncan.
Thank you. Jean Duncan, Administrator of Infrastructure Mobility. I'll maybe try to give a little bit clearer answer to your question, Chairman Clendenin. If there is a vote of support today, what this does, it continues the opportunity for $10 million to be provided for this particular project. The real vote of go or no go is the August, September-ish GMP, guaranteed maximum price, when we bring that contract to you. At that point, we'll have substantial design from the contractor team that we know that they can guarantee the price of the project. And that's the point in time where we should have much of our funding scenarios lined up. These type of projects, you always never know to the very end how you're actually going to finance it. It's so complex. Imagine any big developments, the same type of thing. A lot of dynamics and moving parts to get there. But to answer your question again, that guaranteed maximum price vote this fall for the contract to proceed with construction, that is the point in time where it's an absolute go or no go. If it's a no go, the unfortunate side is, of course, we believe a very good project will not proceed. And the other negative is that we will have to give this money back to the Department of Environmental Protection, which is rarely done, but it is an option. And that's not like the first time this would ever happen, where a project just got to a point and for whatever reason it didn't proceed. So that is your real opportunity. But in the meantime, since that's not determined yet, why not keep the opportunity for the grant funding to stay on the table? Why dismiss that prematurely and then regret that you don't have that when the real vote comes along in August? So I hope that clears it up a little bit for you.
So, Ms. Duncan, I appreciate that clarification. So what I heard you say is that this is a no risk vote, that we can vote to continue the $10 million today. It does not obligate us. It does not tie our hands come that go no go vote. So this is a no risk vote.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, yeah, I was about to go to the next round. Councilman Carlson?
Not a third round, I might have more to say than that, but I just want to
Okay.
ask one question. I think you're the only stormwater engineer here, right, or water engineer, maybe, right? Your background is in stormwater, right? So I want to ask you a
That's
question.
correct, UNLV Stormwater Services Director.
I want to ask you, based on what Ms. Duncan said, because there are a lot of conspiracy theories also about us slowing this project down and everything, even if this is approved today, the GMP will come back in September. When is the first time that people in Parkland Estates will be protected from flooding? And the second part of that is, considering that Palmacia Pines is maybe in phase 2, which is not included in the 100 million, when's the first that Palmacia Pines would be protected? So when is the first that Parkland residents would be protected? When is the first, if it went forward in September, when is the first time that either of those neighborhoods would be protected?
Great question. I think, as Brandon mentioned before, the construction will start at the downstream, the Bayshore, and upstream, and take about the whole 3.5 years to complete phase 1. So Parkland Estate, probably you can see, because the benefit will be seen as we go through the construction. And we would imagine probably 2.5 years to 3 years, and the box will be moving towards the Parkland Estate.
So, just to repeat what you said, make sure I heard right. There will be some incremental, like around 2 or 3 years, but it'll be 3.5 years. So
right, because the construction will be broken into segments.
So that's like
right, it's
2029, early 2030, before Parkland Estates would be fully.
Probably late 2029.
And then what about, since Palmacia Pines, am I correct, Palmacia Pines is not included in the 100 million, they would be at phase 2. When is the first, how long will phase 2 take? Another couple years beyond that, so maybe 2032 or what?
That's a great question, because we want to take advantage of the construction time for phase 1, doing all the procurement. That's what we're planning to do, all the procurement and design for phase 2. So they will see immediate construction continuance after the completion of the phase 1.
So how much longer do you think it will take? A couple more years or 3 years?
I would say we want to confirm with the contractor, but I would imagine probably 18 months to 2 years, something like that.
I mean, just for my colleagues, we need to find a solution, but as Ms. Yuan's predecessor said before, this is a long-term project, and there's no short-term solution on the table. I still think that we should dig out Fountain Park, for example, even if it's not going to provide a lot of relief. And I think we need to do more projects in Palmacia Pines. But for the Palmacia Pines people who were here this morning, it's going to be like 2032 or 2033, even if we approve this today and move forward on time.
Ms. Duncan.
Yes, thank you. Jean Duncan, Administrator of Infrastructure Mobility. Yuan has answered the question correctly. However, I wanted to add that her question is answering when is that physical construction benefiting Palmacia Pines. As this project is constructed, there's indirect benefits to that upstream portion as the downstream portion is completed. That sheet flow that will come from upstream is alleviated by bigger capacity that gets created in the downstream section. So we believe that there's still incremental benefit. Obviously, the major benefit will be when we have the full system built. But the longer we take to build the system, the longer the problem exists and the longer it is for Palmacia Pines to get the relief. So just wanted to add there is an incremental benefit from day one.
Can I just,
Yes.
Ms. Yuan, since you're the stormwater engineer, I showed the elevation floodplain. The water, all the engineering analysis I've seen going back to 1988 and talking to other engineers, it's just like around the area behind Stovall House. There might be 11.5 inches in one spot, but it's coming in all the red areas and it's pouring down into the yellow areas, right? So Palmacia Pines, especially that corner, Habana and whatever it was, they're getting probably 30 or 40 inches since it's all coming down from the area. All the documents I've seen on the prior studies show that water, because of the configuration of the ditches and the drainage ponds are above grade, so they're not and they haven't been dug out in a long time. but because of the way they were configured, that area is still flooding, and then when that area floods, it pours into Parkland. And so I don't see how we protect Palmacia Pines incrementally, because it's not like the water is backing up. The water is backing up, and first Palmacia Pines has to flood, and then it goes into Parkland. Isn't that correct? I mean, that's just the hydrogeology of it.
Yeah, that's very true, Councilman. In fact, the original study was 1982. And if I do remember correctly, some of our city employees were probably part of the study originally at PBSJ, that's a firm, to perform the study. And the problem, because the corner that you mentioned before was Horatio and in that. And I think the problem is the Cleveland system was overtaxed, because the system was built by FDOT in 50s, if I remember correctly, and partially the problem was they were designed prior to the stormwater regulation, and also the design was not considering the development scenario, because it was only partially designed, so it was under design. So that's a problem, is accumulating upstream to Havana and Horatio Corner. And when they are, because that's the lowest point, when they are overflowing, they overflow to the Parkland State. That's exactly what has happened in the past years.
As I understand it,
Okay. We didn't have time. That's 2 minutes. And I'll be honest, like, we're going way afar of the actual point today, which is to approve the continuation or not. So,
Yeah, just one last one. Thank you,
okay,
Madam Chair.
timer, please. 2 minutes.
You know, I'm just here listening and listening and listening, and I tell myself, if everything fails, including this one, you're never going to get anything done. Not the Pines, not the North, not the East, not the West, not the South. Never. So just remember, I can't control the weather. I can't control storms that don't move. And we haven't had one like that just stays over us like they did in the Carolinas and I'm not trying to scare anybody, in New Orleans and so forth and so on. But there's been so much stuff out in the street everywhere you go in here, everywhere, there's every day a lot. This is moving $10 million for 1 year for free that you don't have anyway right now. It's just a signed contract that you're going to give it. So what is killing this contract by going, you can vote against it, but if you don't move the money, you're going to lose the money. You ain't going to never build anything. If you don't build anything now, you can forget the rest of the city, because not a damn thing's going to be done. Because they have lost in the public faith of the elected officials.
Okay.
So I can say this. I'm not afraid to go by myself. I voted by myself for many years. I don't think that's going to happen today, but I can tell by the voice of people how they're going to vote and how they think. So it's body language. I hear what they say, but the body language tells me another thing. So I can tell you this. Thank you very much. I heard the bell and I stopped.
Okay.
No, I don't want to get knocked out again.
So, does anyone else have any questions or any more comments? We can go for another 2-minute round. It does not sound, I'm sorry, yes. Councilwoman Young.
So just to be sure, right now, what we are voting on today is for to continue to have this 10 million in the event that we, approve this project when it comes back in August or September.
Brandon Campbell, Mobility Department. Yes, this is just for the extension by 1 year.
Okay, and so the 54 million in the match was already approved, right?
Yes, that was in the previous grant agreement that was approved in 2024.
Okay. And if we decide down the line, August, September, when it comes back to us, we say, okay, no, this is not going to work, then that's the go, no-go point.
Correct.
Okay. So, it does not sound like I cannot move this, even though it's my committee, because I am chairing. It does not sound like Councilman Maniscalco wants to move this, so I will ask Councilman Vieira. So Councilman Vieira, you'll move item number 32. So I have a motion
Second.
from Councilman Vieira. I have a second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call, please.
Maniscalco? No. Hurtak?
Yes.
Young?
No.
Vieira? Yes. Carlson?
No.
Miranda?
Yes.
Clendenin?
I'm going to vote yes, and with the explanation, because of Gene Duncan's answer, that this was a no-risk vote to continue this decision point till we get the maximum price, and then we have a go, no vote at that point. And that's the only reason I'm voting the way I'm voting. Thank you.
Mr. O'Hara, I have a quick question for you. I'm sorry, go ahead and read the vote.
Motion carries with Maniscalco, Young, and Carlson voting no.
There was one question, and I don't want to get into a huge debate about it, but I wanted you to answer it so as we think about going forward. The money left over from the McDill 48 project, is it specific to what it can be spent on?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll find out for you.
Okay.
In fact, I can find out within minutes.
Okay, great,
Can I ask
thanks.
one more short question? Just one more short question. So the people in and around this project, without naming names, when I asked them, well, looking at all the prior plans, it looks like you could go into Palmacia Pines. And they said the way the contract or RFP was written, it didn't include Palmacia Pines as the primary source. But what I've been told is if we went back through contract administration and changed their ability to look primarily at solutions for Palmacia Pines, that then would protect parkland, that they could do that. Do you all have any comment on that? Is there a way, since you're barreling down towards September, is there a way that we could make sure that we include a robust look at Palmacia Pines?
Again, Brandon Campbell, Mobility Department. I will say, as we discuss more specifics in the project in the next several weeks, I think some of those questions may be answered without having a contract language change, but should we decide that after those discussions we need to pursue something else?
But is it true that the contract, as it exists, limits them from looking too much at Palmacia Pines?
I don't know exactly what the limitations are. Yuan may have more to say on that, but we do anticipate benefit to Palmacia Pines.
Okay, last question.
Yuan Li, Stormwater Services Director. Again, great question. The language in the contract right now is we do all the modeling effort, including Palmacia Pines, because really this is a regional problem we want to resolve, and it doesn't limit us to do the planning effort. However, the design and the construction is not part of this contract, but the planning effort and the phasing planning already being done. And those will be shared with the council at the workshop and also with the public at 30% design.
Okay, we have to move on. I'm sorry, but the question was answered. We need to move on. Okay, item number 59. So we're already going to be here a really long time today. And we have we all have a 6 o'clock. Yeah, it's the MLK gala.
Abridged version.
So we got to be there at 6. And Ms. Sharp, if I could borrow you. Okay, you let us know when you are ready. I'm assuming you have is there a presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Coming up
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
screen?
If I
Okay.
can have the presentation up, please. Got extras? Well, thank you very much. Sir, I appreciate that.
Yeah, 59 is next.
All right, good afternoon, Council. Once again, Dennis Ruggiero, Chief Financial Officer. Again, thank you for making time for us today to talk about our second annual preliminary year-end presentation. I hope Council and the public will agree that last year, when we did this for the first time, it was very useful, very well received. We certainly thought it was a very good communicative product for both Council and the public, and us, to be quite frank. We have hard copies of the presentation, which have been distributed, and we also have some for the public, and we'll be emailing the detailed line item figures to you following this presentation, and we'll also have hard copies of that available. It's a great deal of information, a lot of detail, and we appreciate your interest in it. Before I move on, as we did last year, and as I'm sure I'll continue to do in the future, I want to thank Ms. Kopesky again. Thank you for our discussions and helping us craft what we think is a continually improving product. I also appreciate, thank you, Council and Councilwoman Hurtak, for your willingness to move this item, to continue this item from December 18th. We really tried to meet that timetable. Some of this information is actually going to be given to you today, 2 months ahead of when we did it last year. So we really worked hard to try, but one continuance, so I appreciate your flexibility. Also, as we did last year, and you'll see throughout the presentation, this is unaudited information. Of course, as you know, we're a $2 billion organization, and it takes months and months to close the books. We're doing that right now. We're pretty confident in these numbers, but as you know, by law, we have to have a third-party CPA firm come in and review our books and provide a report to us and to City Council, and that's happening as we speak.
Robin Hood.
All right. So it was about a minute and a half late, but okay. And you see the agenda here. We've broken down the motion into separate components, just so we all kind of know where we're at in sharing this detailed information to you. You see the first item, components of the general fund. Speaking of components, this is a very brief educational section we've added for the first time, providing a little more context and insight into the general fund. And you'll see that the way the City of Tampa does the general fund is it's a complicated budget anyway. It's even a little more complicated for us. Next on, the adopted budget versus the preliminary actuals, again, unaudited. General fund balance and commitments, and this is the portion we're bringing to you much earlier than we did last year. I believe last year we gave you the general fund balance detail around March. Stormwater and enterprise funds, fund balances and commitments. General fund variance by department, that will be either an email and or a handout, and then the general fund list of financial resolutions. And the general fund components. And I've got general fund in quotes up there because, again, in the spirit of continuing education and a good refresh for ourselves, most localities that you go to have a general fund, one single fund. We have 4. Okay, it's often lost that we have 4 because we talk about the general fund collectively, but as we talk about what's left over from last year and what we're bringing forward into the next year, it's useful context to know that it's actually 4 funds. And we call it all, and have called it all for about 3 decades, the general fund.
Whoever has that, if they could mute it, that'd be great.
I guess I better make sure it's not me. It is not. I wouldn't admit to it if it was, but it's not. And you see them here. It's 4 funds or sub-funds. The first, of course, is what you typically find in a locality, the general fund, revenue and expenses for general operating departments. Did you follow? Was that it? The second is 2 insurance funds. And you see down at the bottom there, the city inherited this fund structure 30 years ago when we combined the general fund and the insurance funds. We're used to doing it. It probably doesn't really matter to 99.9% of the people out there. But again, As we look through, and I'll share with you the financial statements in just a moment, as we look through the financial statements, and if you're trying to coordinate the information we're sharing with what we're publishing, that becomes important. And then here is the real complication, the utility services tax. And you see, I won't read it in its entirety, records public service tax revenues and transfers to other funds. In the city of Tampa, and for decades, this has simply been another general fund. The reason I surface it is there have been attempts to combine with the general fund and simply have one general fund, which from an accounting standpoint is much easier. And probably from a layperson's standpoint, if you have someone going, we have so much information shared, it's easy to go to something that says this is the general fund and be mistaken because it's only a portion of the general fund. And it's probably wonkish, but it's useful to know that there are a lot of, four to be exact, spinning plates when we talk about the general fund. And we want to make council and the public aware of that. Super simple. This is what it looks like, although this is not how we run it. You got the general fund, you got the insurance fund, and then you have the utility tax services, or UTax fund. This may be the last time you'd like me to talk about it, and if it is, that's fine. But again, in the spirit of continuously improving our presentation and our communication, we wanted to throw that in there. Moving into the motion, the first item on the motion, the adopted budget versus the preliminary, and you see the itemization here, major and minor categories, etc. Just like last year, I'm going to tell you the ending of the book, spoiler alert, and then read through how we got to that ending of the book, and you see it right here. These are the combined general funds. Pardon me. The adopted budget versus the actuals, you see, is a total variance, revenues and expenses of $10.7 million. We're going to get into it in a great deal more detail, of course, and one of the reasons I talked about the financial statements is, of course, this is our annual financial comprehensive report. It's a great deal of information. I know probably typically City Council and the public are more familiar with the budget, but this is what happened in the past as opposed to what's happening, what we think is going to happen in the future with the budget. And this is what the state, the external auditors, this basically says we did exactly what we said we were going to do with our money. And you can see it's a rather thick document. And all of the information I'm sharing with you right now, and the accounting section that does this is absolutely fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And all of the information I'm sharing with you leads into ultimately what those financial statements are going to say. And in summarization, in revenues, you see a variance of just over $19.7 million. To the far right, 2.2%. That's tight. You've heard me say it before, and we have grown accustomed, not because it happens by accident, but we have grown accustomed to very, very tight tolerances on our revenues and expenditures. So congratulations to council, congratulations to the mayor, the departments, my shop. It takes a village, right? Firing on all 8 cylinders to get a budget this refined. Pardon me. And this is also, let me not leave expenses behind, an even tighter tolerance there, a little over $9 million or 1%. You know, when you're talking over $900 million, these are bullseyes, just absolute bullseyes. And as we've said before, this is what you expect, what we expect from a AAA rated local government. And I do like to stress this too, you know, from a fiscal sustainability and resiliency perspective, and you've heard that, we've heard that more and more almost constantly since the pandemic. What is your long-term financial stability plan? And this is where everything else flows from in the general fund. How is your general fund, or in this case, the combined general funds, how are they doing? Because if you have a problem at the fund level, many of the other problems aren't going to matter as much because it's going to impact the ability of what you can do, what council can do, what the mayor can do, what I can do, and departments can do. So we monitor it constantly. I know council monitors it constantly. And here is, you see it paying off. Very, very tight. And here are the general fund UTAX fund financials, breaking it down, again, in a little more detail, because this is what we typically talk about when we talk about the general fund. Variances here are a little wider, but there's a very, very good reason for that. I'll get into more detail later in the presentation, but you see in revenues, variance $41 million or 5.5%. That is unusually large, and the reason it's unusually large is, and you'll see this in a couple places in the presentation, you have an artificial inflation in both the revenues and expenses of almost $31 million, and those are the GASB 96 actions, which you may or may not recall. If you don't recall, I don't blame you. That's the Government Accounting Standards Board actions we brought to council through the year, where they require us to reclassify our long-term liabilities associated with things like computer service contracts and things like that. And what it does is artificially inflate the revenues and the expenditures by almost $31 million. So if you exclude that, and that's really going to tell you how tight we got, our revenues were less than 1.5% varied last year, incredibly tight. Our expenditures were even tighter, just over 0.5%. So you'll see, even though this is a little misleading, you'll see that continuing very, very refined projections meeting those actuals. And the insurance funds, again, because they roll into the general fund. A couple things going on here. You see the actual variance on the bottom row of a little over $4 million. The overwhelming majority of that are the Dubois settlements. Other than that, you've got about $1 million, which is simply a variation in projection. So again, it's a little misleading in terms of the variance, because we have to account for that settlement in there versus the adopted budget. Over on the right, the revenues, the adopted budget versus the actuals, and those variances are unusually large. Again, you have inter-fund transfers that are inflating the budget that we have to do in terms of accounting for the insurance funds. But the bottom line is a little more than $4 million. $3 million of that was the Dubois settlement. As you'll see further in the presentation, we have more Dubois settlements coming. We have HOPS settlements coming. We have significant funding being spent from the general fund on settlements. Having taken care, hopefully, of the 50,000-foot view, we get into the particular categorizations of our general fund UTAX revenues, and you see taxes here. And at the top of taxes, no surprise there, ad valorem taxes, those are the property taxes. Again, very, very tight, a little over 1% variance, but it's almost $4 million more than budgeted, so we'll take it. Better than a sharp stick, as my dad used to say, but still very, very tight. Really no other variances, I think, to speak of in terms, either in terms of dollars and cents. Other general taxes is way off by, 87,000. So that's really the story there, is the bottom line, the total of a little over 1.5% variance. So very, very tight actuals versus the adopted budget. And into licenses and permits. Again, some large variances from a percentage perspective, but very, very slight from a dollars and cents perspective, with one exception, which you've probably already landed on: franchise fees. Need to research why we were so off in terms of our projections for franchise fees versus what actually came in. You see almost $6 million short. We will circle back to council with that. And that is the surcharge for electricity, fuel, things like that. Because we like to know too, if there's an aberration in how we project this revenue, we certainly want to correct it. Or if there are circumstances that occurred after adoption of the budget, we want to make a note of that also. Intergovernmental, again, pretty close overall, but a bit more variation among the lines. From a dollars and cents perspective, the primary aberration would be the state revenue you see there, the revenue sharing and the state revenue. The state revenue is simply a pass-through for our fire and police pension fund. So we take it in and we send it on out. We got a little bit more money, and so did they. The state revenue sharing, you see, a decrease in taxable sales across the region. What else we got there? So I think we can, we will further drill down and explore that, but I think we're going to primarily attribute it to, to the ebbing and flowing of consumer confidence, consumer spending, and distribution to the localities from the state. Again, the state collects it and distributes it out. And I know this is a lot of information to take in, but of course, anytime after this presentation, please, we love nothing better than talking about this. We really do, so we're happy to go into more detail, even though this is pretty detailed right now. Did I click it yet? There we go. Charges for services. Total bottom line, a little less than 3%. Again, very, very close. You see the biggest needle mover is public safety services, and that's almost all EMS fees, about $1.3 million due to, you'll recall, increasing the fee back in 2023, increased trips, and again, hooray, it's indexed. It keeps pace with the expenses in the city, in Florida, and the wider world. So 1.9 million total in additional revenue there. Judgments, fines, and forfeits, the bottom line, a little over $1 million in additional funding there. That's primarily the red light cameras. People love running red lights. And, and we continue to gain, this is consistent with previous years, we continue to get a little bit more funding in the red lights than we anticipate every year. Finally, the beloved other category. And this is really interest. I'll address interest first. We have, I think you heard me mention this last year, we are continuing to scrutinize our investments more, not investing more aggressively, but in taking advantage of the different investment opportunities in terms of what we invest in and when we invest, and you're seeing that pay off here. Also included in that, in that other earnings category is about $6.5 million of a settlement associated, and I'm sure you've read about it, with the Forever Chemicals. There has been, I think it was a class action, I may be wrong, but has been a settlement from a number of chemical companies associated with Forever Chemicals to localities, and $6.5 million makes up that almost $13.4 million in that variance. Oh, and then of course you see the GASB 96 adjustments. That was the 30.8, almost $31 million I was referencing before. Here is where it rears its head in revenues. You'll see a like you'll see a like number on the expenditure side, and from an outside perspective, it's simply an inflation of revenues and expenditures that, again, we were required to do by GASB. And not only us, but localities nationwide. And the summation of the revenues that you saw earlier, broken out by itself, again, a 5.5 variance with an extra 41 million, but again, 31 million of that is the GASB. So what you're looking at is about $10 million in additional revenue in the general fund compared to what we adopted. Moving into our expenditure category, we start with personnel. Still very, very close from a bottom line perspective, less than 1% at total. Council may recall last year that for budgeting purposes, we are required to budget in one category and spend from another. So you'll see some large variances between the salaries and wages and the benefits. In total, when you add those together, it's pretty close to the bottom line total, a little over $4.5 million variance. Again, 507,000 budgeted, 503 actuals, so we spent a not insignificant amount less, a little over, or almost $4.7 million than we anticipated. I don't like the way that it's done. I don't think it provides a clear picture, but that's how we are compelled to budget these. We budget them in salaries, we pay them in benefits, things like terminal leave, stuff like that. So I guess that's a long way of saying probably the important numbers are the ones you see at the very bottom, a very, very tight personnel budget. Operating, a little bit wider, but not too bad. Again, I would say, you don't want to discount a little bit of luck, but I would say almost $8 million less in expenses than was budgeted is a sign of increasing scrutiny of our expenses, whether it's my shop, whether it's council, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the departments. So 8 million less, a little less than 7% variance, we'll take it. And again, the story on this slide is the $30-odd million in that computer hardware / software sign. And this is that $30.8 million rearing its head on the expenditure side. So again, want to demonstrate that consistency, not only in the story we're telling, but consistency in what we're showing, both from a revenue and expenditure perspective. Our debt in the general fund, not a great deal going on here. A very, a little over $500,000 variance, a little more than anticipated, and that's simply a projection. A little under 7%. Grants, I think you've got the same thing, that the aid to governmental are the community redevelopment agencies. That's how it is classified from a chart of accounts perspective, aid to governmental. We simply call it the transfer to the CRA, but that's what you're seeing there in about $54 million, right on target. Aids to other, again, a pretty good variation there, a little bit, $1 million more. What was that for? Oh, that was, part of that was the Route 1, 3/4, and part of it was a little bit additional social action and arts funding. And again, oh, I'm sorry, had I not advanced that? I apologize. There I am. Again, state chart of accounts, we have an other category in revenues, and we have an other category in expenditures. But here we break that down into more details. What I would point out is the budget reserves summary group. See the aberration there. That's a category we use as an internal control. We don't expense from it, so you see that reserve appropriation, but we don't expense much from it, and very little of an expense associated with that. The bottom line is a little bit more than we anticipated, and again, you're going to see that when you use a budget reserve summary group, and I can get into more detail on that later if you'd like. Bringing us home to the expenditure figure that you saw earlier, and again, 3.5%-ish variance over on the far right, which really, when you take out the GASB the GASB 30-odd million dollars comes down to just a little over 0.5%. So very, very close expenditures compared to what we budgeted. And returning to our 50,000-foot view we started with, you see how it shakes out there. About a $10 million variance overall in terms of what differed in revenues and expenses.
Okay, and we're gonna stop here for a second because this is motion A, part A, and then
Yes.
we'll go into B and C. So I'm
Okay.
gonna stop just to have some questions.
And again, I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah,
just ask
yeah,
you?
yeah. So, yeah, Councilman Carlson.
Can you go back to page 7 and 8, or 7 and then maybe 8 after?
Certainly. Just give me a moment. If you would, if I can have the presentation back up, please. There we are.
Thank you. So
Yes,
my
sir.
question is, there's the budget and actual. So on the, you talked about the revenues, but on the expenses, $9 million more than budgeted. And then go to the next page, please. 26 million more than budget on the expenses. My question is, when we get the change accounts form, usually it says moving from this account to that account. Is it disclosed in there that, and maybe my colleagues can weigh in too, but is it disclosed that this is coming out of a budget increase? If you just say, oh, we're moving money from this account to this account, it looks like we're just moving stuff around. But it seems to me that the $26 million decision on the prior page, the $9 million decision, it seems like that would have come back to council if we had $35 million extra that we would have. What this shows is that right now we only have $15 million extra, but really we had 41. And so out of that, we spent 26. So the question is, was there somewhere where city council and the public saw that 26 million was coming out of unexpected new revenues?
It would in a normal year, and again, I apologize I apologize that it's not as clear as it should be, because when you see $26 million more in expenditures, because of that $30 million in GASB, it was actually about $5 million expenditure reduction. So it's a little misleading, but it's what we're compelled to do.
But on GASB, don't we have to hold that for future liabilities or
other potential employment benefits, OPEB, things like that?
Yeah.
Those are different, and again, those are different GASB rulings. GASB has about 100 and, I don't know, last count, 120 rulings, which we can certainly talk about at another time. But it is skewing the numbers when you total up the general fund because of those that $30 million revenue.
I guess my request, if it's not, and my colleagues can tell me if I'm wrong and missed it somehow, but my request would be if there are expenses that come in that are above what was budgeted for the total dollar amount, that there be some flag there that says this is coming out of unexpected revenues, higher than expected revenues.
Understood.
Not just coming from another account. And if I think part of the purpose that Councilmember Hurtak or somebody put this on the agenda was to make sure that the public has a chance to weigh in on where the overage would be. Right now, the overage is just 15 million in this chart, but it would have been 41 at some point. But somehow we made a decision on 26 without knowing, without the public knowing that it came out of an overage. The other thing,
and I'm sorry, if I may, if I can have that presentation back up. What I'd like to do, and I didn't introduce it tonight because again, I don't want to get away from what the financial statements will reflect. What I'd like to do is provide another slide which takes out that
That was
GASB.
going to be my recommendation.
Okay, and give, again, I know a lot of information's coming at you, and I don't want to mix apples and oranges, because what we try to do is tie to exactly what the viewer will see in the financial statements. And again, you'll see about $10 million more in revenue once you take that $30 million out, and about $4 or $5 million less expenses when you take that out. So I would like to do that. I'd like to provide it. I didn't introduce it tonight because I thought it would be confusing.
But my point still is that
Understood.
if there's a new source of revenue or a higher than expected revenue, the public should have a chance to weigh in on how that's expended.
Understood, so we'll highlight that.
And if the administration is proposing spending some of it, then the public should know this is coming out of a new source of funding, because the public may have other priorities. And tell me if this, stop me if this is gonna be in B, but in the overall debt that you all presented a few months ago during the budget process, there was several hundred or $1 billion in debt in the pension, and we're going to talk about that in a workshop coming up.
yes.
But connected to that, I got some calls this week that the pension checks, which are really important to retirees, were due. They should have gotten to pensioners on the 1st. 1st is a holiday, but some people got on the 5th and weren't able to cash it until the 6th. And I'm told that the city in the past has kind of made money on the float there. Is that intentional? Is the city trying to make money on those 6 days or 5 days? Or, I mean, is that something that's included? And if there is a float, is that money poured back into the pension? How does that work?
No, we wouldn't intentionally hold in order to make money off the funding. I will check into it though and see if there was an aberration. Do you have any idea how many people, did anybody share with you how many people they thought were affected, or was it across the entire?
I don't know. I just got anecdotal feedback
Okay.
from folks.
I'll look into
Yeah,
that
if you
and
could
find that out.
If you could
Yes, sir.
maybe send a memo or just email, let us know. I appreciate it.
No, I hadn't heard that, but thank you.
We're all going to be drawing on that one day,
Yes.
so we all want to make sure.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Young.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wasn't it?
Oh, okay, just, you had your light, okay, so I'm going to go with page number 12.
All righty. Intergovernmental, yes, ma'am.
So so what you're saying with the state revenue sharing is that sales tax dropped.
Either sales tax dropped or the distribution from the state dropped. And they don't always go exactly hand in hand. Some of it will be based on timing of collections and timing of distribution. But yes, it's probably no surprise to anybody that there, I think it was referenced this evening, there are a number of economic uncertainties out there. And you're seeing that play out in terms of what people, not only what people are willing to spend, which of course contributes to sales tax, but how people think they're going to be spending in the future.
Yeah, and it's just very interesting because, we heard that we had a banner year in tourism, and generally those two things kind of go hand in hand, but that was fascinating. Page 15.
And I'm sorry, I was remiss in not mentioning that there's an interplay between the state share revenues and our gas tax fund. So,
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
I was remiss in not mentioning that particular component. So you also saw that contributing to that particular line item.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. Page 15.
Yes, ma'am.
The use of fund balance. That was that some of our changes?
Yes.
Like what exactly made up that use of fund balance?
Let me see if I have that. I know it was some of your changes, and I will be referencing.
But there were no actuals. So that's
Right, because we don't, when we budget, you can't spend from fund balance, so we have to appropriate it out of fund balance someplace else.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'll be speaking actually a little bit more to that in the next couple of slides.
okay.
Yes. But good eye, yes.
And then I think my last one for now, page 22, kind of holding on to that.
Yes, ma'am, more other.
Your
Yeah.
sub, basically your footnote here on
Find that,
transfer
and- yes,
to
I'm
other
sorry.
funds.
I'm sorry.
It some of these I recognize from what we appropriated last year, but not all of them are here. And then there are other things. And so it would be great if you could explain. So for example, the stormwater services fee came from the overage of 2024, you know, what we had there. The sidewalk money, the resurfacing money came from there. But we're missing the money, the rest of the money for the hurricanes, because this is only 5 million, when technically we used 14 million to repopulate?
We did, and you won't see it reflected here because we don't appropriate that. It simply stays in a committed fund balance. As opposed to, you know, sidewalks, for example, we have to appropriate that in order to spend it. The hurricane funding, but I appreciate your memory, the hurricane funding, we don't appropriate, we simply hold it in abeyance in a committed fund balance.
Okay, and so what was this for then? What was Hurricane Milton 5
Those were expenditures associated with the hurricane that we, if memory serves, that we floated as we awaited FEMA reimbursement.
Okay, so that's additional to the 7 that we already floated?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is, and we still haven't gotten those funds, we haven't received?
We've, I think we still got about half to go.
Okay.
Yes.
And that would be interesting. I think that's coming up. Isn't that part of our presentation coming forward about, or do we have one yet about hurricane funding, what we've expensed versus what we've gotten back? Do we have any?
I don't recall if we do or not. We can certainly provide one. But
yeah, that would be interesting. I'd like to talk to your office about that. I won't make a motion on that today, but you know, where you think, actually, that's probably appropriate in the midterm. Don't we have a budget? Don't we have a midterm coming up?
We do have a mid-year coming up, yes.
Okay, so I'd really like to hear where we are in that, because that's a huge amount of money tied up right now, I have to imagine.
It is.
So we need to, and that goes to part to our earlier conversation today about money. So, and then the only other thing I would ask about is the transportation intersection safety.
Yes.
And the housing fund.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, what is your particular question?
I guess, you know, when did we move this money? Because, or.
Oh, understood.
Yeah, I don't recall either of those.
The transportation intersection safety funding, that is the 25% that is allocated for intersections, going back at least over a decade.
Yeah.
That council says, you know, whatever we bring in for those that camera revenue, a quarter of it goes to intersection safety, and that's what that is.
Okay. And what about the housing fund?
The housing fund, I've got it right here, $2 million hurricane assistance and about $500,000 for the Ybor Art Space.
Oh, okay, yes, that was from, correct, that was part of the budget, but that was part of the budget, not the extra budget. Got it. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay, any other questions for section A? The others, I think we might be able to go through more together. They don't seem very long, so we may not need to stop and question, but I'll stop after B and see how we feel.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Kopesky has a question and or comment.
Yeah, Hager Kopesky, City Council Budget Analyst. I just wanted to ask if you could just expand slightly further on the Forever Chemical, which in this presentation only dealt with 1 year.
Yes.
But I felt you
absolutely.
may want to talk about future as well as maybe any limitations.
Okay, no, appreciate that.
And
Yes,
what page was that?
Yeah, what page was it?
15.
15, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I didn't get a chance to write that down because I wrote down something else. So yes, the Forever Chemicals.
Yes, ma'am. Let me just find my notes on it, and I appreciate that. Yes, it is a multi-year, or anticipated to be a multi-year settlement. What you see in fiscal year ‑25 represents about, again, a little over $6 million for the general fund. A previous payment of a little over $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, was allocated to the water fund, and we also anticipate future payments.
And what line item was that?
Oh, that's within, the interest and other earnings.
Okay,
So about half of that variance is associated with that settlement.
So the 6 million. And what do we expect? What do we expect to get overall? Maybe Ms. Evans might. Wow.
You're a ninja.
You really are.
Where did you? Yeah, here's the expert. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. McLean Evans, Assistant City Attorney. If I could just preface my comments with, this is actually, just to correct the record, it's not a class action. It is what's called multi-district litigation, and it is still active litigation. The funds the city has received so far are from settlements from 2 of the defendants. The claims are still active, so if council would like a more detailed briefing, I would request that they would make a motion for a shade meeting. Ideally, if you're looking for a date, May 7th, because our outside counsel, who is the expert and been living all this, has to come down from Nashville. So I cleared that date with him. However, in terms of publicly available information, we've received, one of the payments is a one-time only settlement with one of the 2 defendants that we've already settled with. The second one is actually a scheduled payment through 2033. 55% of which the total sum we have already received. So there is about 45% remaining. And it's a decreasing schedule over time. We're anticipated to get about 16% of the total remaining. Roughly, please don't hold me to this, but just to get a general idea, I think that would be about 800,000 this year, and they would be annual payments in decreasing amounts through 2033. We have the 2 remaining defendants to, assuming they decide to settle with us, they are smaller also, so those would be anticipated to be single one-time payments of an amount yet to be determined, if indeed the settlement gets finalized. And then there's further claims that I would rather not go into that would be litigated for different damages other than the water damages.
Okay.
Is that
Thank you.
satisfactory?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you
Appreciate
so,
that.
I did not realize you'd come in, so
No,
thank you.
she just snuck in.
Yeah.
I almost didn't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
just waiting. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll go on to page 25, motion item B.
You get there. And if I could have the presentation back up, please. Thank you, thank you. All right, the preliminary change in the fund balance for the general fund and any reserves or commitments identified, et cetera. And this is, again, what we've really worked at bringing you earlier than last year, allowing the mayor, allowing council, allowing the public, more time to review and talk about, the potential purposes of what we carry forward. And you will recognize a similar format as last year. And just as we did last year, we'll start from scratch. This is what we anticipate we'll bring forward from last year. Pure general fund balance, $212, almost $213 million. Again, the caveat, it's unaudited, barring any changes mandated by the external auditor, and we don't anticipate there will be any at this stage, but I can't guarantee it. This is what will be reflected in our financial statements. Again, that thick document I showed you earlier. Here you see, as we did last year, we've accounted for what we view as our obligations of the city. Maintaining the fund balance, of course, at 23% will take up almost $160 million from that pure raw fund balance. You've seen many of these before because they are recurring commitments, whether it's an assigned fund balance, a committed fund balance, restricted, et cetera. Healthcare is going to take a little under $13.5 million. Ma'am, this is a continuation of that hurricane funding that we were talking about earlier. That is pretty much the historical number, 7 or 8 million. Claims, 5.5 million. I do want to talk about the union contracts. Council will recall the budget was adopted prior to closure with the union. In fact, we met this morning with the IAFF in our continuing negotiations with the fire department. As you know, the police unions and the ATU have closed. We thought it prudent to put an amount in because, again, the budget was adopted prior to closure, and that's $4 million. The many settlements that I referenced earlier, you've got 3 HOP settlements in three consecutive years. You've got the tail end of the Dubois settlement. A relatively minor amount for purchase orders. These are obligations we made last year that we probably gonna total close to 3 million, maybe a little less because we're still closing those out. And then inventories, of course, very, very minor, non-spendable. So if I can go back, you see about 213 million. We're going to need about 203 million, and then of course you can do that kind of, even I can do that kind of math in my head. About $10 million is what we have left over. But I would like to point out some challenges that have surfaced. Not the least of which are the school traffic cameras revenue. I don't know if you saw a statement recently from the police department. The placement and effect of the school traffic camera revenues needs to be redone, or the school traffic cameras needs to be redone. We are unlikely to receive most of that anticipated revenue this year. As the police department and mobility strive to get that program up and running, we don't know when we're going to start receiving revenue, but obviously because it was not completed, we're not going to be receiving revenue anytime soon, and that's adversely impacting our revenue forecast. I can't guarantee you it's going to stop at 4 million. But right now, we're trying to get a feel for just what the adverse impact will be. Relatively minor to that, of course, you may have heard that TPD needs to replace their sidearms. And that'll be about $1.8 million. Some of it funded from the community investment tax, which will bring to council, but they're still going to need close to $1 million, $750,000 for their sidearm replacements. Presuming we stay that course, there's about a little over $5 million remains in general fund balance for allocation.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you very much. Now, I will state, as you probably remember, we had more last year remaining for allocation. I really think you're going to see, I may be wrong, I really think you're going to see this as a trend as we continue to refine our spending and our projections through the year. I mean, you know, I'll brag on us, I'll brag on everybody. We've gotten very, very good at projections, and so the variances overall are going to be less and less. So that's what we're looking at right now. No questions? I'm sorry, ma'am. Did you?
Nope, go right ahead.
Thank you. Motion C, stormwater and enterprise funds, and again, preliminary changes in fund balance and reserves or commitments. Starting with the stormwater fund balance, even Steven, very little activity from a year-end fund balance perspective. Now, of course, you'll recall last year at the aforementioned mid-year meeting, we will bring you more comprehensive pictures of all of these enterprise agency fund balances. In other words, what their total fund balance is. Here you're simply seeing the change from year to year, what kind of reserve requirements they have, et cetera. But you can see it was very, very vanilla from a stormwater fund balance perspective from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25.
Okay, so what we're
sorry.
seeing, oh, I'm sorry, I'm breaking my own rule. Go on.
Okay. Parking fund balance, still doing very well. Again, the revenues coming in better, and you know, we've got fee increases. I think we're managing our revenues and the collection of those revenues better. Expenditures a little higher than we anticipated. You got the debt service, you got the capital projects as Fed and his team continue improving those garages, and a reduction in fund balance of about $6 million. Some of that, of course, is we're using some parking funding for repaving. Solid waste fund balance. You have a bit of an aberration in the revenues, not really unexpected as we just raised those revenues. And so we don't have an established history of collections associated with the revenue increase. The good news is it's an aberration on the positive side. The interfund transfer associated with you'll recall, the project, or the projects out there, excuse me, and the expenses. Bottom line, you got the debt, but the bottom line you see is a not completely unplanned use of their fund balance from 56 million to 41 million. You also have the unplanned generator, $10 million out at the waste to energy facility. That's the word I was looking for. Overall, and I think the revenues bear this out, the increase in fees is serving them very, very well. That's extra good news, especially because, as you know, we'll be coming in the not-too-distant future trying to coalesce their short-term debt into a long-term solid waste bond. Wastewater fund balance reduced, and again, this is part of the grand plan as we front-loaded fund balance in both the wastewater and water department, primarily for the pipes projects. Big numbers, better revenues than the previous year, that's nice, although a little more expenditures too. Debt service and the CIP are programmed in there. A similar, although less variant example in the water fund balance. Again, planned use as part of the 20-year pipes project.
Okay.
I'm sorry, any questions?
Yeah, any questions on section C? I do have a question
Yes,
on
ma'am.
page 30 to go back to that stormwater fund balance, because obviously this is a topic that is of major interest to this council.
Yes.
So page 30.
Yep, I'm there.
So it looks like we had more in 2025, but yet we still have a fund balance.
I'm sorry? Thank you, yes. Yeah, no, please feel free to chime in, thank you. And I'm sorry, what your specific question?
So,
ma'am?
I mean, we had 4.3 left at the end of this year, and just given what we experienced and how we're really trying to get through, we moved some money from the general fund, but yet we still have some money left in here. Can you speak to why we didn't use any of this funding?
It's primarily associated with spending timeframes. I'd have to
Okay.
defer. I don't think the department is here or online, but we can circle back. But again, it's how fast can you get the funding out the door?
Okay, understood. That was kind of my assumption, but it just seemed very odd because it's the exact same amount of money.
No, thank you.
So-
And I hadn't. Thank you, Ms. Kopesky. I hadn't made the general fund transfer connection, so I appreciate that.
Okay, Councilmember Carlson.
Is this including both of the stormwater fees?
This is the capital projects. Yes, yes. Now, what it doesn't show, again, is the total fund balance. This is just the change in the fund balance.
Yeah.
Which, again, we typically do that at the meeting.
And then can you go to the solid waste one, please?
Yes, sir.
So, and sorry I stepped out for a second, I might have missed it, but the 41 million, that's a decrease in fund balance. But does that fund balance there because of anticipated expenses that have already been planned and you'll be using that cash anyway, or is that money that could be spent on something new?
That is, and again, we typically get in more detail at the mid-year. That includes specific reserve requirements, like they have a 90-day operating reserve requirement. So that will be included in there. There is some in excess of that 90-day reserve requirement, and we'd like to establish, a repair and renovation.
You know what you might,
reserve.
what you might want to do is put, I mean, you're the CFO, but
No, open to
like
suggestion.
fund balance dash reserves and fund balance.
Yeah, break that up.
Operating
Yeah.
or something like that, just so we know that, because otherwise people look at that and say, okay, let's use some.
No,
Because-
I appreciate that because I have that exact thing in my notes.
Yeah.
But so thank you.
But the other thing is that I wonder if that was there, does the administration, and you're gonna wind all this up into a bigger debt issuance, but if we happen to have a big fund balance there, would the administration then spend that money on things that we've been holding back on, or would they just reduce the amount of debt they're gonna ask for from the bond markets?
It will depend on a couple of things. It may indeed end up being less debt, but it also depends heavily on what the department plans in the future. Investment, and again, that repair and renovation reserve that I talked about earlier. We've been very successful. It's an older facility, so as you look into the future, much of it will depend on what we plan in that future. So it's almost like a mini pipes program, but it's not a definitive answer because I don't have a definitive answer for you yet. But it will probably be a combination of what's planned for the future and can we issue less debt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can go on to section D. Thank you.
Section D. Oh, yes, we'll be sending this out. In fact, my shop may have already sent it out via email, and we'll have hard copies available for you, too. This is that very detailed line item information by department.
Oh, okay, great. Once it is available to us, is it also going to be uploaded
Yes,
on
we'll put it on-
base?
Yes, we'll put it on the website. Well, we can put it on base.
Okay,
Yes.
no, I mean, just because people are, after this as well, if we could put this presentation on base
No, thank you.
under item 40 or 59, but that as well would be great. And if you have it on the website, that's wonderful. But it gives two places for the public to find it.
Yep, no, thank you for that reminder. I appreciate that. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, of course, Councilmember Carlson. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we have,
almost finished, but yes.
yeah. Yeah, this is the last section, section E.
Yes, motion
This is the
item.
one this is kind of goes back to your original question about what happens when they want to move money. This is what has been moved since September 21st.
Yes.
Or September 1st, rather.
And you see the items here as Chair, what is it, Chair Pro Tem Hurtak stated. This is from September 4th through November 20th. Again, we have an opportunity after the end of the fiscal year to adjust the previous fiscal year according to Florida statutes, and you see that here. The largest components, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record, are the GASB 96, well, the particular GASB 96 item on November 6th of a little over 30 million, and then we have a little, an early bird there on September 18th of a little less than $1 million. So very little, I would submit, very little activity other than that GASB 96.
Yeah, and this is why I generally like to focus a lot on any financial resolutions that happen after September 1st, because they already know what the budget is, like, so our office generally tracks this as well.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Yes, Councilman Carl.
So if the line that you now say is general fund balance, or sorry, fund balance, would that automatically roll into the general fund then? Or, I mean, would you account for it in the general fund surplus, or does it remain in, I mean, enterprise funds, it remains in the enterprise fund,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Unless
sir.
in a week or two, we're gonna talk about interdepartment transactions, but it seems to me like there could be for cash flow that a loan of general fund and then an enterprise fund would pay it back at some point.
That has happened in the past. I don't think we have any agreements like that. One of the, and this may just be trivia, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but if in the past, organizations, for instance, general fund has taken a loan from an enterprise fund, the water department, okay? Where I came from in Brevard County, water department had a lot of money. But because the water department is an enterprise fund, has to be operated like a business, and in many instances owes debt, they have to charge interest for that. So when you have those loans between funds, typically there's an interest and expense component associated with that. Or is that not what you were asking?
No, I just to make sure the public especially knows where the money's coming from and how it's allocated. It gets back to my question about if a department is $5 million over in revenues, or net revenues, then would the administration then count that as a surplus that we then have to make a decision on, or they say, well, we got $5 million more, we can spend it?
At the end of a fiscal year, if a department has more, well, I think I know what you're asking.
If they budgeted $4 million and they brought in 10, just
Gotcha.
hypothetically, do you all let them spend the extra 6, or do you say, hey, that's a big decision we have to come back to council and the public on?
We'll have to come back to council and the public because we'll have to recognize that revenue. We'll have to appropriate it, and that requires council approval. And I'm sorry if I went down a rabbit hole there. I thought you were asking about interfund loans.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. On page 37, you have 6 items there that total, the numbers don't match. Resolution and impact, are they supposed to not match? There's a $950,000 difference between the 2 numbers.
My compliments, sir. I think you discovered an error.
Although the numbers match on the top 6.
Right, the totals don't. Yes, my
The totals do
apologies.
not match.
Yes, my apologies. We'll correct that. Thank you.
It's $950,000
Looks like we might have doubled.
one way or the other.
Yeah, the GASB 96.
More likely it's on the 34,697 do not match with the 535,647,685. There's a on the 34,000 is short 950,000.
Yeah, I think we double counted on that GASB 96.
But thank you very much. I assume that my numbers.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Anything further in your presentation, sir?
No, thank you. I certainly appreciate y'all's time. I know it's a lot of information in a lengthy amount of time. Hopefully, we've provided a great. I know we've provided a great deal of information. Hopefully, we've provided a great deal of useful information. And of course, if you have any questions, please reach out. And thank you again.
Thank you very much,
Ms.
sir.
Kopesky.
So, per the addendum, it said items 45, 46, and 48 to be heard after item 59. So that was a motion by Chair Pro Tem Hurtak, so we'll wait for her to come back. We don't have an attorney. We don't have a Chair Pro Tem. We don't, so.
But we still have Guido.
Well, but you got me.
Throw everybody off.
Yeah, if you,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd support that. So anything else? Anybody want to talk about?
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Charlie just mentioned that budget thing, and I always have people ask me, they say, is Charlie still with it? Is he still? I said, you should never, ever underestimate Charlie. If he pretends like he's not paying attention, he definitely is paying attention. And that just shows, how sharp he is. And that,
I'm not
whatever,
I just listen a lot.
whatever olive oil or whatever you're eating, I want to know what it is so I can be like that at 83.
All right.
Like beans and rice.
It is the West Tampa way. So today is Elvis Presley's birthday as well as David Bowie? Huh? No, he was born in 35. 35.
When was the last time somebody saw
So it'd
him?
be 92. 92, yeah. So. All right. Yep. What, were you born in 77? Oh, so you missed it. All right, we're just waiting. We didn't want to go into the other items.
Sorry.
This item is done?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we'll do it now. I'll do it now.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
and we're all
Okay,
gonna
so-
do this together.
No. No.
So we want to make sure, we want to add something to the agenda. I'll let you talk about.
Yeah,
what
I
you wanna
like,
add to
Madam
the
Chair, if
agenda.
I may, we've had a young lady who's been here for many, many years. She started off many years ago, and she's not that of age, but she's a very nice looking lady, but she's been here for a while, and she started off in one department and worked her way up in the same department and became city attorney. And now she's retiring, And we wish to give her accommodation right after this council during the meeting so she can be on film when we make the presentation. I'd like all of us to make it together down at the podium so it could be certified for her to have in her memoirs.
Okay.
And that's Andrea Gelman.
So we need to make a motion. We're going to add this to later in the agenda, Mr. Shelby?
It depends when you want to do it. I spoke with Ms. Elman. I had to talk with her about something else upstairs. She is upstairs, and I do know that you do have to get to other items on the agenda, and I do know that you also have an engagement that you want to be by, but I would just ask.
Why don't we do it at 4:30?
Yeah, time certain of 4:30.
Is that a
Okay,
motion?
I have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco for 4:30, a second by Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
And Ms. Elman, if you are listening,
4:30.
thank you
If
very
it's
much.
a problem, let us know.
That's in the evening.
Yes.
I wanna make sure about that.
So 16:30 if you're going to use,
That's right.
international time. Okay. So item number 45, thank you for waiting because this is one that we have quite a few questions about, but also, also if there's a possibility for T&I to add Chair Clendenin back so I can see him. So if he has any questions, I'm so sorry I wasn't, I assume, Chair, that you would have interrupted us if you had anything to say about the budget. But would you like to
I would.
opine now?
I was listening to the whole thing, and I actually turned my camera off so you didn't see me blowing my nose.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you sound like you're not having a good day.
No, no.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to item 44, and that's the resolution to transfer, reallocate, and appropriate 1.1 million from small neighborhood parks projects. If you, I don't know if we have anyone from staff here.
Fine.
We're 45. We are 44. There was no administrative update. 45. I believe we divided. Oh, there he is, Mr. Fowler.
Oh, is he on? Okay, good, good.
But I wouldn't go super far.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Fowler. Director Fowler, welcome. And I believe you might be muted. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
The difference between the Gadsden Park Improvement Project and the JBL Attenuator Dock Repair Project, that would be great.
Well, the bulk of the ask is for over $500,000 to go for Gadsden Park improvements, which would include a prefab bathroom that would be ADA accessible, that would need to be put above the floodplain. So that would be and tied directly into existing sewer lines. So the idea is to get a prefab bathroom that, again, is ADA compliant. We would run sidewalks, part of the cost, 2 hard surfaces so that folks would have the opportunity to use that restroom, which is badly needed close to the Little League complex. We do have restrooms that are near the softball complex, but they are a long way away during Little League season, and to be able to add this amenity would greatly improve the quality of the experience for the park goers. That's about $400,000 total. The rest of that, which would be a $110,000, $120,000 balance, would go towards an end department. We would do the work ourselves at the behest of a civil engineer who would give us the plans, would be to alleviate the flooding at the entrance of the park and around the curve of the Little League field. So that would be the scope of the work that would be done at Gadsden.
Okay, and what's the total amount of money for that?
I believe it is right around $600,000. That's what we forecast it would be.
So Gadsden is 600,000. So then the dock repair is 500,000?
No, the dock repair for, let me check. I believe it's around 280.
Okay,
And
so we have a big gap
We
there.
put a little cushion in there because we're going to do as much ADA accessible sidewalk as we can at Gadsden. So we got a cost, but that was like 6 months ago. For in the interest of costs rising as much as they do, we would use the bulk of that at Gadsden with a $280,000 cost to replace the attenuator dock at ABL.
Okay, so I'm confused. We have $1.1 million. How much of that is going to JBL and how much of that is going to Gadsden? We only have two options here.
250 and 6 something, and then a cushion. The leftover is a cushion.
But it's got to be a cushion for one or the other. Like
The cushion is for ADA accessible sidewalks for Gadsden.
okay, so you're saying $280,000 for the dock, period.
That is the price we were given.
Okay. I asked you earlier in a separate meeting if you were able to take a look at the cost of moving the dock so that we do not have to have the same thing happen again for the boat running into it. Were you able to do that, or are you still working on that?
I'm still working on that.
Okay.
When we discussed it earlier, my main concern was by moving the dock, that would up the labor costs, and also it could make access to the park itself going up a steeper grade near the between the bridge and the river center. So I'm still working on that.
Okay. Anyone? Yes. I see. Okay, so did you have something, Councilman?
No, I remember being that park. I toured it here recently with Ms. Bennett about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the park is beautiful. It needs a little upkeep like we're talking about. However, there's room in there for about 80 to 100 Class 1 trees to be put in because it's beautiful, it's open, and I believe there's enough room for that. I did run that through the administration, and they're looking at it.
Okay. Anyone else? I will say I cannot support the dock repair until we know that it's the best place for it. Also, it is not a small neighborhood park, Julian B. Lane, so I simply can't, personally, I can't allocate the money from small neighborhood parks to deal with a major park. So I can't support that. I don't know how others feel.
How big is Gadsden Park?
Oh, it's acres and acres and acres.
Yeah, but.
It's got to be 70, 80 acres.
So,
I
anyway.
understand that.
Yeah. Okay, well.
Is it possible? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not gonna support this because I'm not gonna support the dock. There's a lot of other repairs that need to happen in our Parks Department before
There's
that.
one in Henry and Nola that we're working on to get done, and that's been in the works also.
Okay, so, go right ahead.
Is it possible to just accept the repairs for Gadsden? Like, can we do that?
Yeah.
Resolution. It's a
Well,
resolution.
the resolution is for $1.1 million from the Small Neighborhood Parks Project to fund those two things.
Your vote authorizes the mayor to sign the resolution. So either the resolution has to be substituted if you want, or you could vote to continue it to the next regular meeting. You could ask if there's a time constraint on this, or you can vote to deny it, or you can vote to approve it.
Yes.
We can provide a revised resolution consistent with what Mr. Shelby said.
And name, just for fun.
Oh, I apologize. Dennis Rajero, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Maniscalco.
So do I make a motion to provide, or to instruct you to provide us a revised resolution that removes the dock repairs?
Yes, sir.
From this? So I'd like to then make a motion to revise NCA 25-18998 to reflect the removal of the JBL attenuator dock repairs and just leave funding for Gadsden Park improvements.
Copy.
And does the motion need to include when that will be presented back to council?
January 22nd.
The 22nd?
Yeah.
They haven't turned that around very fast.
And I'll give you a reason. So when we approved the JBL Park, I think it was $35 or $36 million back in 2016, 2017, because I know it was done by Mother's Day 2018. It was the most expensive park in the city at the time. But then there was an amendment or another resolution for another $1 million because of other unexpected expenses. So we've invested a lot of money in this park, and I love this park, and I'm always in this park. However, now we're asking for more money for dock repairs. Is Gadsden a small neighborhood park? No, but it has nowhere near the amenities that JBL have. JBL is a Rolls-Royce park. It's a wonderful park. Gadsden needs the improvements, so that's my reasoning behind it. Not that I'm against the dock repairs, because I rode in high school and they rode from those docks, and I love the water, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, that's my reasoning behind it.
Okay, I have a motion from.
Chair Pro Tem?
Yes.
And so I'll give you my reasoning for that, which is you are right. We have a lot of parks with a lot of needs. We had originally had, we were supposed to be briefed today on disability parks, and I wanted to quantify the amount that was going to be done in each park and so forth pursuant to my request. So since I don't have that information, I can't support that. So I second your motion. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, Director Fowler.
That was actually Alan. I was last.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Chair
I
Clinton.
have a question. What is the implications of not approving the dock repair? What are the consequences?
Mr. Fowler.
It's a safety issue. It's been in disrepair for a while, and our biggest concern is that it's not letting the park be used as what it should be used as, all the amenities, but it's also a glaring safety issue.
So is there a legal liability involved involving, or is the area closed off, and where are we at?
Well, the area is closed off because you can't pull a boat up to it and unload passengers, but the pilings are still in the water under disrepair. And I don't know if Carl's listening, but I would defer to Carl Brody if he wants to pop in and say if there's a legal issue.
Carl Brody, are you on?
Okay, we are in the middle. We have we have a motion on the floor right now. So,
Well, this would be germane to the motion.
Okay. So.
But I'm not on the
I don't.
So there's liability issue. I'm just concerned about council's voting against something that if staff is determined that we have a need to repair something. I mean, repair is different than enhancement.
I hate to say this, Chair Clendenin, but there are other issues in other parks that could be considered similar, and all they do is put some tape around it. So I will disagree with you on that one, but.
I thank you, Madam. So, Councilman Clendenin obviously brings up some points. Maybe this could be brought back at a later time.
We already did that.
In other words, this particular proposed project could be brought back later by staff. I could hear things out further. I'm fine with that.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilwoman Young.
Is the dock insured? Like if something happens to the dock, if it's, a boat runs into it, is there insurance on it to fix it?
That would be a question. I don't know whether Mr. Brody's here, but also that's a question for risk management and where is he?
Oh wow! It's a day of speak their name and they shall appear. It's
and
amazing.
the question is, what was the cause of it, and is the cause of it liable? Do they have insurance as well?
Yeah. So from my understanding, a boat hit it, and that's why I asked Director Fowler to see if there was another place in the park where it might be safer to put a boat dock, that was kind of my question. So, but anyway, Mr. Brody is here. Chair Clendenin had a question for you. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Brody, thank you. I'm curious about the liability issue and the safety and liability issue, the exposure of the city with us if council was to turn down repair, knowing this is a known problem.
Yeah, Carl Brody from Legal Department. I mean, our liability, and we don't like to discuss it really publicly like this, but obviously if you have a known condition, that raises our duty to the public. So if we can just leave it at that, we can have some further discussion on it.
Councilwoman Young.
My question was, is the dock insured? Do we have insurance for the dock in the event that it is hit or something?
Well, yes. I mean, the city's self-insured, so we have coverage if the dock is damaged or if anybody is injured because of the status of the dock currently.
So could we not file a claim to fix it? Well, I'm just
Selvin.
thinking. Like if I
I think, did I hear Ted? Okay, if I did not.
Yes, I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, if any damage that was incurred, yes, we can file a claim on that damage that we received.
so it could be repaired through the insurance claim?
I think what we're doing now is that we need the funding to do that right now at this point. If we waited for the insurance claim, then that's a whole nother process we'd be going through.
Okay, Councilmember Carlson.
No, just to follow on what she was saying, how do you decide whether, since we're self-insured, how do you decide whether to just pay it versus file a claim? Because we're paying ourselves out of one bucket or the other. But, I mean, I assume you have reinsurance at a high level, but how do you make the decision? At what level of an accident would you file a claim against our own insurance versus paying it?
Right, I mean, that's, we factor in the potential cost, and we work that through risk management to make, those kind of determinations. And that is something that the department worked on just to determine, what the best next steps are.
Okay. So I'm going to make a suggestion that I have asked Director Fowler to see if there's a better place to put this dock so that it might not be hit in the future before replacing it. So Chair Clendenin, if you would humor me to wait until we get that answer. I asked him about it, and he's Chair Clendenin's giving me a thumbs up. So right now the motion on the floor is to bring back the resolution for just the Gadsden Park improvements, but not to say that we can't figure out the JBL attenuator dock repair as we move forward. So I have a motion from wow, I see how people get tired doing this. From Councilman Maniscalco, I have a second from Councilman Vieira. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Carlson. Miranda.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Young. Vieira. Clendenin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. And so that is for the 22nd. Okay, it's time.
Let's all go down together.
Oh, okay, we're
do the
gonna
whole
go
thing.
down together.
All of us will be on TV.
Okay, let's do this.
We'll move the quorum to downstairs.
Delandre, I'm sorry, but I don't want to get her sick.
Bye, Chair. I feel like I'm talking to Max Headroom. What are we doing?
I don't know, this is
Charlie wants to ask you some tough questions.
This is Councilman Miranda's
Come on
show.
in, young lady.
Okay.
Come on, y'all. Okay.
You know,
Get in.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Andrew Zellman for a few years. I'm not going to say how many. But she was here when she was a teenager, just about working in the legal department. And she left for a little bit and honed her skills in somewhere else and did very well. And then she decided to come back when we needed some help. And she's married to a good friend of mine named Clay Phillips. And I remember the wedding very clearly and very nice. It was beautiful and so forth and so on. But the baddest about it is your 30 years of service that to the city attorney's office. It seems like yesterday, but time flies
I
when
wish
you're
it was
working with the
30,
city.
I'd have a better pension. It's less than that, Charlie.
Well, it says 30 years here, but you know, I
okay.
didn't write the
Yeah.
thing. I'm just, well, I didn't want to, I'm sorry to embarrass you about
That's
that,
okay.
but I apologize. But, you know, the Tampa City Council is honored to recognize Andrea Zellman for some years, more than less than 30, the dedicated service to the city attorney's office. Having served as an assistant attorney from 1996 to 2002, and later returning to serve as a deputy city attorney Mary Jane Castor will then appoint her to the city attorney on September 1st, 2022, where she would serve with distinction until her retirement. Through her tenure, Andrea has faithfully served the city and the city council and the citizens with unwavering dedication and integrity. Her lifetime commitment to legal profession and the city that she has served so proudly spans 3 decades, but the impact is immeasurable. We wish her good health and happiness in her well-earned forthcoming retirement. And in other words, to her favorite artist, it was the end of a decade, but the start of a new era. Her dedication, and it's signed by all 7 council members, and we wish you and Clay the best in your future and your endeavors, and I know you're a die-hearted Gator fan, so we know where to call to get tickets, because the Florida Gators play
That's
football,
right.
basketball, and baseball.
And a place to stay.
And a place to stay, in a 1-bedroom house.
No.
I'm only joking with you. Thank you very much for all the thing. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it very much.
Thank
Every year
you,
your service.
Charlie. Mwah.
Take care.
All right.
Your turn.
Okay. Do you guys want to go back and sit down? You want to stay here? Or this is awkward.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Did we get the photos we needed?
The aides were really proud about adding your favorite singer.
I know, I know.
Thank you so much.
Well done, thank you. I'll keep it brief because you all have had a long day and I know you have something to go to.
Can you start with your name?
Yes, Andrea Zellman, city attorney for 1 day and a few more hours. Thank you so much, City Council. Obviously, it has been the experience of a lifetime to be the city attorney, and it's been the experience of a lifetime to serve the city of Tampa. I want to thank all of you for recognizing me. I want to thank my staff most of all. They do an incredible job, and I'm leaving you in good hands. They're great. Scott Steady's going to be great. I feel really good that he's coming and will take my place. And again, it's just been the honor of a lifetime. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for working with me all these years. Thank you for listening to me most of the time. I think, Bill, I actually have you on tape saying, I have to listen to the advice of the city attorney. I'm required to do that, which was one of my favorite moments. So, and thank you obviously to all your aides. And I have a feeling Dossie may have had some input on that Taylor Swift quote too. But thank you all so much. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you.
Oh, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk. It's the time that people say good things about you. Okay, I'm going to start with Councilman Miranda.
It's a fun thing. In fact, just digging up in the files that Mary Bryan and I had bought some beautiful photographs of City Hall. So my aide's going to present you with a picture that Mary Bryan and I worked on many years ago, and there's a few of them left. Wow. That was the last one, by the way. And we
put it on the
appreciate it,
wall?
so that's
Yeah,
your gift from our staff and from the city council to you.
I don't know if that.
You can take it out of the plastic thing, it'll look better. It'll transform better.
Can T and I put the wolf vision on?
This is really beautiful.
It is pretty.
Elmo, please, or whatever we call it now.
The wolf.
The wolf?
I don't know what we're done.
Okay.
CTV.
Oh, it's
coming?
trying.
They fell asleep.
It's a beautiful picture of City Hall.
I think they went on a restroom break.
It's apparently not working, so, okay.
It's a beautiful picture of City Hall. I don't know if they're gonna,
Now they
camera can
just
show
need to-
this. There we go.
Ah, there you are. Oh, that is lovely. Okay, anything else, Mr. Miranda?
No, thank you.
Okay, yes, Councilman Maniscalco.
Congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for everything. I mean, behind you is truly the best legal team in the city of Tampa. You show me a law firm that has a team like this, and I'd be surprised. I wouldn't believe it. So they're second to none. You're just a great person, especially you and your husband. And you've always been a good friend. I'll never forget, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. as part of this group with the Joint Center. You know, I met council members from all over the country. And before I went back to the airport, I flew out of Reagan to come back to Tampa, I called Kathy Castor's office, Congresswoman Castor. Your husband answered, and I said, no, I'm in the neighborhood, if I can come by. Yeah, come in. I mean, door was open. I went into, is she in the Rayburn building or no? It was the Rayburn building. And I walked in, go through the metal detector. I thought it was the coolest thing. I mean, you know, the people that have walked through those halls. Door was open, he invited me in. It was very, very nice. Congresswoman Castor was in session, was voting, so she wasn't there. I mean, she was doing her job. But I think about that as a very good memory. You know, going up to Washington, D.C., anytime I've needed advice, a couple of years ago, I mean, your husband was there, you were there. You're just good. We are so lucky to have you. And you started here, you know, you have years of experience with the city, but to end your career at the top, I mean, what a better honor in a city that we all love. We're going to miss you, but I know that you are going to enjoy this retirement very, very much. You're not going to be very far away. You're always going to be around. But I mean, who could replace you? Scott Steady, wonderful person, but big shoes to fill. You know, at the end of the day, we're very, very blessed and very lucky to have you. You did a wonderful job. You end the career on a very high note, and you ride off into the retirement sunset, but you're not going to be gone. So we will see you, and I'm grateful to call you a friend, you, your husband. So congratulations. This is well deserved. This is a very small token of our appreciation. You deserve a lot more, but again, thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Carlson.
I just want to say thank you. I said kind of a month ago, I said some things about you, but I'll say some of it again. It's been great working with you. You're smart, you're honest, you're committed to the community, and it wasn't always fun having kind of what I call intellectual arguments or debates, but it was fun having those discussions with you because I think we both saw finally we would see around it, and I love to work with really smart people, and it was just even though we didn't agree all the time, it was fun. It was fun having the discussions and going through it. And you know, your commitment to the community, Clay's commitment to the community, together you all have had such an impact on this community. And you know, we appreciate it. And I mentioned this before, but there were a lot of things over the last few years that people thought were impossible to accomplish, and you and I figured out how to build a collaborative bridge with all different factions. And I can't even tell all the stories publicly, but it was amazing working with you and being able to get a lot done for the constituents of this community. So thank you so much. I'm sure you all will stay in touch, and I'm sure you'll contribute to this community. But if you have any ideas that will help us elevate the city, call us and tell us. Thank you.
And the phone works both ways. I will answer when you call, and if you want to, I told you before, if you want to bounce anything off of me, I'm happy to talk.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. No, I'm a big fan of yours. I think you're wonderful from a professional standpoint. I remember when Mayor Castor came in, she brought just so many amazing attorneys here. Yourself from Buchanan Ingersoll, right? Kate Wells, who came from Trentham and Shoemaker, as I recall. Rebecca Johns from McFarland Ferguson. Susan Johnson Velez, former HCBA president, formerly at Fowler White, among so many other amazing attorneys who really, obviously, Gina Grimes, Hillward Henderson. So, you know, you were such an integral part of that. You're an amazing attorney, so very smart, an amazing accomplished professional, but you're also like a good person. You're very decent. You've talked about your family, your background, all these different things. You've got integrity and decency, and that's so very important. You know, you're a wonderful person. Your husband Clay, who is very meaningful to me. He's a great guy. He knows what the Pendergrass machine is. That's an inside joke, and he's just such a fine person. And y'all together have just been there for so many people in so many different ways, professionally, on a personal basis, and so forth. And so the biggest thing that I can say is, you know, for y'all's plans and going where y'all are going to be going, you know, it's so good for you to have a lifetime of work, do what you have to do, and then just go and be happy. That's what you're going to do. So God bless you.
Okay, Councilwoman Young.
Congratulations, Lon. While I have not been here as long as my other council members, I really appreciate the time that we have had. And I remember our first meeting, and any questions that I had, and you're just telling me about your story and you know, how you got started. And that was really, I really appreciate that time. And so I just want to say congratulations. And I did claim an orchid. So
I was about to say, I owe you an orchid.
If it is still there, I would love to be her new home.
It has your name on it. Yeah.
Okay, Chair Clendenin.
Hi, good afternoon, my friend. Our relationship goes long before my life on city council, so you know how much I admire you and how much I respect you. I'm you know, sometimes I make these things seem sad, but actually I'm happy for you because I know your true love is Gainesville and University of Florida, and you're going to where you want to be. I'm going to miss you here. Thank you for everything. Thank you for all of your advice and counsel, not just in city council, but in life in general through the years. I'm really appreciative of everything that you've contributed to my life. And you leave behind, as everybody's echoed, a great staff. I think I've echoed this many times from the dais, how much I appreciate our city staff and especially our legal staff, Kate, Susan, Morris. I mean, everybody's just wonderful. And the city of Tampa is well served. And if you could ever judge a leader, you judge a leader based on the legacy they leave behind, and you're leaving a great legacy. So thank you, Ms. Zellman. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, everything you've done for the city of Tampa. And I look forward to seeing you and with a big smile on your face as Gators rebuild that team.
Wow, a little bit
I like
shade
that.
there. Yes, I just want to say it's been such a pleasure working with you. We got to know each other during the city's Charter Review Commission, and so it was thrilled when I came to the city and found that you were here, and then even more thrilled when you became city attorney, because we already had that relationship to then build upon, and I think that is so important, the individual relationships and building trust and moving forward. And I cannot say how excited I am for you all to move to the place I grew up and feel is so special to me. And I'm glad that you feel that is so wonderful and special as well. And every time you go to Petite Upper Crust, think of me when you have a cookie, because they're my favorite things in the world. So, so yeah, I know it's so good. The croissants, it's the best French bakery ever. And I don't know why we don't have a French bakery here that is remotely close, but. Yeah, that's the dream. But again, enjoy your time there. I know just moving away and doing something new kind of comes with a lot of freedom and a lot of relaxation. And I know you'll be back because as wonderful as Gainesville is, the big city beckons. So thank you all for your service and just go in good health. And we are really appreciative. We'll see you tomorrow for your actual big party, but we would have been remiss if we didn't have a chance to do it today. So thank you so much. Congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay. We are on. Do you want a photo with us? Yeah. Come on.
I thought we did one. Didn't we do a photo? No? Will I come up there?
Yeah.
Come up.
Okay, we are moving on to item number 46. And we have, Mr. Fowler is still here to talk about the Shoreline Improvement Project within the CIT. Remembering that we continued this so that we could possibly use funding from leftover budget. Uh-oh, and we lost Chair Clendenin.
I'm here.
Okay.
If I'm blowing my nose or doing something, I'm killing my camera.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Hey, Mr. Fowler.
Good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon.
So the ask here is to use the $320,000 to restore half of the boardwalk at the Laurie Park boat ramp, which the boat ramp has already had significant upgrades. This is the less expensive part, and we would like to move this money around so we can make it whole and make the amenity right for the community again, because right now it's in disrepair.
Okay. So the question is, do we want to use the money from the maintenance or repair project? Now that we know what we have left in the budget, how do we? Oh, Mike.
I mean, I don't know what their priorities are, all of them, so
Okay.
I mean, we just have something before us for $320,000.
Okay.
And the problem with this, if you don't, the Shoreline, if you don't take care of it, the worse it gets every day.
Fair.
So I was thinking of making a move to move it.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
happy to support it, 'cause if we don't do it now, it's gonna increase the cost and gets worse. It's something like this specifically on a shoreline improvement project. I'm happy to support this as it is today.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilman Miranda.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm so sorry. We have to do a voice vote. Apologies. Roll call.
Sorry.
Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Young, Vieira, Carlson, Clendenin.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira absent at vote.
Okay. Next, thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 48, making a change in the budget. I believe Mr. Jones is here. So we are talking about making the water department whole from the tree trust fund, as we heard from several members of the public today. Do you by any chance know how much was spent just on type 1 and type 2 trees?
Well, it's difficult. I've been back there in the back.
Name just-
Oh, Rory Jones with the Water Department. The itemized invoices don't necessarily break it down per tree.
Okay.
There's other associated dirt work, stump grinding, sod that's lumped, that's not in the individual tree charges. If you look at just the average cost per tree based on 270 trees, the total between type 1 and type 2 based on the average cost would be $206,216.
Okay, 206,000. So what if we just rounded it up to 210,000?
Well,
And then paid the rest through the money we have left. So so here's my argument. You all, and this is before my time, before when you redid the tree trust fund to be focused only on trees. And this 334,000, about 335,000 is being used on things other than trees. The T-tag ladies have spoken over and over again about how they only want the tree trust fund to pay for type 1 and type 2 trees. And I believe that they are right. My concern, but I also believe that the water department did the right thing. So for me, it's not a paying them back, it's figuring out which bucket to go from. And the reason I say this is because I'm afraid that once we open the door to allowing other things from this tree trust fund, the door will be opened again and again and again, and before we know it, it will be wide open. And that is my fear, and that is why I moved this, and that is why I cannot approve it coming 100% from the tree trust fund. But now that we know we have this extra money from the budget, I would be happy to make a motion to pay for the rest of it with our extra funds from the fiscal year 2025 budget.
That's fine.
So, Councilman Miranda.
I'm not opposed to your recommendation, provided they're made whole.
Oh,
And the-
agreed.
Yeah, and I want, the
Oh,
reason
yeah.
that they're taxpayers' money is created by the water department, who sells the water to our citizen, who gets it back, so we're really paying ourselves with our own money.
Correct.
And the tree, they didn't go out looking for the customer
Agreed.
came to them looking for a loan, and they were kind enough to do it. And they're an enterprise fund that is gauged, and they have like I said, one of only 5 in the whole country that had AAA bond rating, so we gotta make sure they're kept whole. So I'm not against you, but I gotta make sure they get paid.
Okay. Councilman.
No, I'm gonna support what you've said.
I'll make a motion. Do you want to say something?
Oh, no,
before I make a motion?
I agree with both of you. I think, I agree with your sentiments wholeheartedly. And also, thank you all for even thinking of doing the trees. But I definitely agree with Councilwoman Hurtak as far as we don't want it to be reopened again and again and again. But
Totally
also
understand.
what you all did, I talk about the importance of trees all the time, and that's something that I just hear out in the community. And so you all saw an opportunity to plant some trees, and do it, in the right way. But I would support that motion.
Thank you.
So I'm going to round these. So this is my motion. Oh, I'm so sorry. Chair Clendenin.
I want to say something.
Yeah, I'm fine with this compromise, but I do want to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because we have the rules, and the rules, they conform with the existing rules were. And I agree that I think if we need to change our rules for the type of trees that we're supporting out of the fund, so that everything's clear. Because again, right now, paying it out of the trust fund for type 3 trees was fine. So if we don't want to do that, which again, I support that. I don't think, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. We should do type 1 and type 2 only out of the trust fund. But we need to make sure our rules for the future are very clear that this is what our intentions are. So I'll support the compromise for this, to pay the remainder of this out of the remaining funds. But I'm looking for a motion sometime after this to change trust fund money to reflect type 1 and type 2.
I intend to make that motion today as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, the other thing, and stop me if I'm talking about the wrong one, but I talked to Rory, I talked to Whit Raymer, and both confirmed to me that I think it was Whit's idea to do this, and then from a sustainability point of view, and Rory said yes. We have an item coming up, I can't find it on the calendar, in the next couple of weeks to talk about internal transactions. But I think that, and I talked to Chief of Staff about this too, I think what should happen is if there's an accounting behind the scenes, but I think there should be more explicit kind of contracts or memorandum of understanding between departments. So that's coming up in a couple weeks. But the idea is that if Whit had gone to Rory and said, here's what we would like you to do, would you agree to do that? And then whoever's in charge of the tree fund would say yes, then there would be like a 3-party agreement, and we would approve it, and then everybody would know what was happening. And even if the tree fund would fund other things, we would limit it in that agreement. We also have a conversation coming up, I think in a month or two, talking about who should be in charge of the tree fund. And the community has recommended maybe that the Natural Resource Committee, which is not fully populated, would be reconstituted or fully constituted, and then it would oversee this. And but I think if we have it more explicit and we have a discussion, approve these even internal agreements, it will help to alleviate these problems. Because it sounds like you all did this with all the right intentions. It's just that if we make it cleaner and all look at it in the front end, it won't look like this.
Exactly. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I make a motion to move $210,000 for the Comprehensive Infrastructure for Tampa's Neighborhoods Project for use by Infrastructure and Mobility Administration Department within the Central Tampa Tree Trust Fund, South Tampa Tree Trust Fund, and Citywide Capital Improvements Fund, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from
Second.
Chair Pro Tem Hurtak, second from Councilman Miranda. Mr. Shelby.
I'm sorry, I was just distracted. Forgive me, but what is, before you're talking about item 48 generally, is that correct?
Correct. I'm doing two separate motions to take money from two separate places, and then I'm making a motion about using type 1 and type 2 trees. I just made the first motion.
And what you're doing is you're directing staff to come back with a resolution with a budget amendment? Would that be the
Yes.
appropriate thing to do? So,
Yes.
so when would that be coming back? At the next regular meeting?
Yeah, and it could be on consent. We wouldn't need it.
And that's fine, I
Yeah.
just need to, but the thing is, what I just want to be clear about is when you make that motion, and this is just for council's general understanding, when you're presented with a resolution to either vote up or down, and you want to make changes to it, what you really need to do then is either vote it up or down, or direct council to come back with a substitute, which is what you're doing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the substitute motion would come on the 22nd just on the consent. Okay.
We have a motion from Chair Pro Tem Hurtak with the second council member Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, can we do that?
Yeah.
Mr. Shelby?
What?
Okay.
Vote on the consent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
do we need a roll call vote or is it voice vote?
For this purposes, I think, yes,
Do a
because there's a
roll call.
remote. Thank you, yes. Sorry, council.
You are
Hurtak?
forgiven.
I have another one.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right.
Okay, and then I am making a substitute motion for or can I do a separate motion? It's a new, this is a separate motion. For I'm just rounding here, so $125,000 for the Comprehensive Infrastructure for Tampa's Neighborhoods project for use by Infrastructure-Owned Mobility Administration Department from the FY 25
26 budget.
I don't want to say leftover funds because that's not the right word, but I'm thinking leftover funds.
surplus.
Surplus funds.
To be paid by,
Okay.
by this September 30th, the end of the year's budget.
Yeah, as I
Yeah.
said, the 25s,
Yeah.
fiscal year 25s, surplus fund on the consent docket for January 22nd.
We have a motion from Chair Pro
Second.
Tem Hurtak, second council member Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, roll call vote. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Young, Vieira, Carlson, Miranda,
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
And you want me to wait till the end of the meeting to do the?
Whenever you want.
I have one more motion to, for a, I guess this would be for a, not a resolution, but
Would this all be considered a code amendment?
Yes.
I don't know the.
yes, to amend the code to make sure that the tree trust fund only pays for type 1 and type 2 tree plantings.
We have a motion from Chair Pro Tem Hurtak, second council member Miranda, and Mr. Shelby.
Did you want to have a tickler, you want this to appear for some sort of written report regarding the process for that? Or just the timeline for that? I don't know whether they're still doing cycles or not. And Ms. Feely was here earlier, but she's not now. I don't know what's appropriate, but I just wanted to.
Can I make a
to see if we
suggestion
could
that
track
the
this.
motion be a request that staff return with a proposed
Yes,
ordinance?
there you go. Staff to return with a proposed ordinance on February 19th.
All right, we have a motion from Chair Pro Tem Hurtak, second council member Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Young, Vieira, Carlson, Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. It is 5:07. We don't have very many left, but item number 50, thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Item number 55, staff to provide an in-person report regarding the 2025 Summer Youth Program.
There's nobody here.
There is no one here.
Should we move it to a future agenda?
No.
I am here.
Oh, she is here. Magic. Okay.
Magic, I'm here. Keeping with the theme. Council, hi. For the record, my name is Brenda McKenzie. I'm Director of Workforce Partnerships with the City of Tampa, and I would be pleased to share a short report
about our summer youth intern program.
Great. If we could get her on the big screen, please, TNI. Thank you. Excellent. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So happy to share about the Summer Youth Intern Program. We have some exciting updates for this year. The program has enjoyed a wonderful reputation over the years, so we don't want to mess with success. But we thought that there was an opportunity to enhance how we reach out to that young person and really ensure that we're crafting a wonderful experience for them. For most of the young people, this is their very first job experience. So we want to make sure that they get a sense of belonging, that they know that we really want them and we value what they're doing, the contributions that they're making here. We want to also set clear expectations so that they can be set up for success and provide the structure that they need for success. And then finally, we want to make sure that they're getting those initial skills and building those skills that will carry them forward. Everything from communications to time management, customer service, and of course, problem solving. So in terms of some enhancements that I really wanted to highlight, it's how we are interfacing with the actual applicant, with that potential intern. So we've tried to streamline, we've listened to them, we've heard them, we even had one of our interns work with us on streamlining the program. So we are creating user-friendly URLs for the program, so it shouldn't be hard to search. For the updated program, it will be tampa.gov/internships, so very easy. We also heard from the interns that sometimes they didn't know who they might be receiving correspondence from by email. So again, we've tried to streamline that. So it will be internships@tampa.gov. So again, just trying to be very straightforward with that intern so that they know. We also want to increase the number of departments that are participating in the program as well. So we will be launching later this month outreach to the department so they can sign up, fill in their form, let us know the exact assignment that they're looking to have the intern with. So again, we can craft a customized experience for that intern.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Young.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda, and I know we've had a conversation about this as well, so I thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and I'm really looking forward to working with you with the summer program and also with increasing those slot numbers for next year. So I'm really looking forward to this, and so right now, students can apply, yes?
Yes, the site is open, so it's launched, the position is open. We're going to be doing a hard launch later this month with social media and community group pushing the opportunity, but it's open.
And if
Tampa.gov/internships.
Okay, and if there's anything that I can do, from my seat, I would love to be able to participate in that. I know that there's a lot of students that could benefit from this, so please let me know even if it's with outreach, with getting out to our communities, because I'm really looking forward to seeing this. So yeah, that was all I have right now.
Thank
Would
you.
love that. Thank you.
So the motion was to include things that were successful, areas for improvement, opportunities for growth, things that did not work, plans for the 2026 program, and how we can add more young people to this program. If you could just go step by step through the motion, that would be great.
Yeah, so for things that were successful, it was really the interest in the program. The interest in the program has remained strong. And also we have generational reputation with the program. So now we're seeing parents who maybe participated in the program in the past, they want their young person to participate in the program. So that is something that's been successful, and that's something that we're looking to build on, that long-term reputation of the program. Mm-hmm. In terms of areas for improvement, we found now workforce partnerships, we've been involved in the program since September. So we had to work fairly quickly, but we did notice that there were some opportunities to really tighten up the administration. So how we communicate with that prospective intern, how we give them information in terms of where they are in the process. How we talk internally to other departments to make sure everything is streamlined. So we've been working with our T&I department, our HR department, parks, and our user departments to really streamline that communication to enhance the experience. In terms of opportunities for growth, this year we are trying a number of internal enhancements to work on that experience. So we believe after this year, we're really going to be poised for growth. And by instituting some of those improvements from T&I, it's really going to help the management of the program looking forward. And the final one is how we grow. You know, we're also looking to be efficient. So we're looking to see if we might be able to squeeze out a few more interns with the budget that we do have by taking some of the processes internal and streamlining some of the processes. So we're just doing whatever we can to reach the most number of students and give them a really phenomenal experience.
What about things that did not work?
Again, I think the communication, some of the call outs that we received is that our communication could be enhanced. And so that's why we really focused in how to improve that and institute those improvements for the 2026 year.
And how many students or young people were involved last year?
We're at capacity at 48 students. There were 48 slots and 48 students.
And how many people do you plan to have this year?
The budget called for the same number of students, so 48 slots and 48 students.
So if this council were to budget more money toward this program, how many students do you feel that you could actually take on this year?
I think we will better know that in a couple of weeks after we get the surveys back from the departments who are interested in participating. But we certainly want to match every department who's interested in hosting an intern with an intern that fits the needs.
Okay, so like ballpark, so when do you expect to have the number of the information from departments?
That is, again, that's all electronic thanks to T&I, so we will have that by the end of the month.
Okay, great, because what I would love, and this is just, I'm just throwing a number out, and if you have a different number, because I really like round numbers, so I think like 60. If we could, and it's not a ton more, but it's some more, to grow a little bit, and so to really be able to explode the year after, but just 12 more, that would be my goal, and then what? Oh, screen went out. Hopefully we're still on. Maybe it's telling us we need to wrap up. We're still on. Okay, good to go. So my goal would be 60, and so what I would look for from you personally is so by the end of the month, knowing how many spaces, if we can get 60, and how much money that might be. So I would love if you would come back with that. I don't know if I need to make a motion to that effect, or if Councilwoman Young, if you want to make that motion, or if you just automatically come back. I kind of don't. Yeah, okay, so how about coming back? How about February 5th is not enough time, I would assume. So how about the 19th? And if you need more time, you can always just let us know. But do you want to take that? And do you want to take that motion?
I will raise you and say, because Brenda and I already spoke, and I said 70.
Oh, okay. Then if she feels that 70 is doable, yeah, okay. So you want to make that motion?
So, yeah. And
for February 19th.
Okay. So motion would be
to come back.
Make a motion for workforce. Was it workforce?
Summer youth program.
Workforce summer youth program. To come back February 19th.
To find out how many
departments would like to participate in the summer youth program, and how many more slots.
See if we can get to 70.
See if we can add 70 more slots.
No, 70 total.
70 total.
And how much money
it would cost
to
do that. Yes.
So I'll take that motion, jointly made, but by Councilwoman Young. Do I have a second? I have a second from Councilman Vieira. Any other? Can we just voice vote this? So, all in favor? Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Clendenin is back. I saw we had a furry council member for just a moment. Yes, the dog was there. Okay, so you know me, I won't miss a dog. So excellent.
Do a voice vote?
Yeah, so all in favor? Sorry?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We look forward to what's coming forward next. Okay.
Thank you for the support.
Excellent. So I believe we have Miss Wynn, or is it Mr. Fowler coming back? Whoever's doing a verbal report for the approved caterer list. Oh, this will be good.
Good afternoon again, Council. Parks and Recreation Director Ted Fowler.
Okay. Can you provide the in-person report on the approved caterer list for city venues and the website improvements regarding venue availability?
Yes, we can. We have made significant changes to our processes. The ones that remain, of course, is the vendors must meet the minimum qualifications of proper licensing and certifications, and they also must have insurance. If a caterer is booking an event that is alcohol related, they must have a liquor license as well. We have made changes into the vendors no longer have to have at least 7 years of experience. There's no minimum requirement for that. They do no longer have to have an online presence, which was a requirement in the old system. And we also have made some adjustments to our frequently asked questions on our website. Since we changed our process, we've had 43 caterers request information, 22 have submitted applications, and 18 caterers have provided services with the facility since April of 2025 when we instituted these changes.
Okay, do we have any? Do we have a list of those?
We do not have a list because that's what we were trying to get away from. We could produce a list, but the list is organic and changing it every time because, for instance, somebody could be at the River Center right now booking the event and they can bring their own caterer as long as they meet the minimum qualifications. So if that's the ask of the council, we can produce a list, but it might not be current as soon as tomorrow. So the idea was to get away from the list and make it open to everybody.
Councilwoman Young.
If I would like to see the list, since you all have made the changes, what, the list of caterers that have participated so far, since you all have made those changes.
Okay, I can get that to you.
How about having a list online of all the ones who have participated and being able to add to it as more people hop on?
I think that would be good too.
Well, that's an idea as well. But we just wanted to try and get away from the list because we feel like it could be misconstrued as those are the people who are only allowed to be there. We can look at internally in the process. We just wanted to, again, it would be almost impossible to keep it up to date as often as it changes. Like I said, there could be 3 different folks trying to book an event and they're bringing their own caterers. That list could grow exponentially day after day after day. I know we've looked into changing the software to accommodate the ask of website improvements, but the cost is prohibitive.
Okay, so then
we can have discussions and see if we can come up with something.
So it would be great. Can you, excuse me, can you repeat the number of applications you've received since April?
Well, the numbers of interest and the number of applications are different.
I'm sorry, so yeah, give me the interest.
Go ahead, sorry. We've had 43 caterers request information, which is basically just, hey, what do I need to do? We've had 22 caterers actually submit applications. And we've had 18 caterers that meet the criteria set forth through legal and that have provided services within the facility in the past 8 months.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I missed it. Can you repeat? You said you had 43 that were interested, 22 that submitted?
And 18 who met the criteria and the minimum standards to provide services within the River Center since April 2025.
Did all 18 of those actually provide the service?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So how about this? And this is since April 2025?
Yes.
How about we have you come back in April or come back to update these numbers?
Yeah.
Would you like that? What date works for you,
Like a-
Councilwoman Young?
Could that be a written report, or you want?
Yes,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
would-
thinking this is
yeah.
something that we could do maybe every 6 months.
Yeah, just to see.
something to
Yeah.
keep it fresh because it's something that the public keeps asking us about. Just that way, the numbers, we can get a list, but then if we just simply get the numbers to make sure the numbers keep going up, that's our
yes.
interest, I
Yeah.
believe. At least that was my interest in putting this on the agenda. So
And
would
then
you,
we,
you wanna-
we'll know, if the changes, do we need to make more changes to the list? Is it working? I would like that. I would
Okay,
support that.
so
also-
what, do you want to make that motion since I'm chairing today?
The other thing is you had talked about getting a list of
I want the-
caterers now, from
Yeah.
which list, the approved or the, and the question is, my suggestion would be, I know Mr. Fowler has offered to do that, my recommendation would be, if he does it by email, that he emails to all the
The
city
council,
council members so that everybody has a copy.
Yes, yes.
So would you like to
please.
make both those motions?
Yes, so, okay. You help me out here.
No,
Okay,
you've got
so, okay, so motion number 1 is to provide us with the list of all caterers that,
Do you want the ones interested, submitted applications, or met criteria?
I would like all of them, why not?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would like all of them.
And you want them emailed to us?
Yes,
And
yes.
by when?
Well, how much time do you think it will take you to get that, Mr. Fowler?
I believe 2 weeks is enough. We can, it probably soon, let's put it this way, 2 weeks is the maximum, but as soon as I get the information, I'll have it to you.
Okay, so within the next 2 weeks, to have the list sent
By-
to all council members,
Let's just say by the 22nd.
by January 22nd.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilwoman Young. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay,
Next motion.
okay, and then the next motion was, what was the second one?
Here, I can make the second one.
Pro Tem Hurtak.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we receive a report in June, because that'll be 6 months, so let's go June. Actually, let's do quarterly for a little while. We'll go to April. A written report on April 2nd of the same thing, the number of interested the number of those interested, the number of those who submitted an application, and then the number of those who've met criteria / catered.
We have a motion from Chair Pro Tem Hurtak
Second.
for April 2nd, second from Council Member Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we have, is there anything else, Councilwoman Young, on that you want to talk about?
Oh, we'll touch off, but thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have one item left. That is item number 60. I'm sure Ms. Feely is online somewhere.
Good
There she is, I
afternoon,
knew it.
Council. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to ask to share my screen for a moment, if that's okay, because I did do a quick slide. The clerk could just, I haven't done that. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
And Ms. Scharf, if you could come in while she's doing that, I have some.
Can you see my screen?
Ooh, yes.
Oh, wrong screen then. Hold on. I knew the code wasn't that exciting. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, Excellent.
Oh, there it goes.
Excellent. Okay. Just a quick update. Super excited. Happy New Year. I know you all have somewhere to be, so I don't want to be too delayed, but as you know, we pushed out the first installment of the code update so that we could allow for the comprehensive plan to come back to you, which is coming back on February 17th. You have a special call meeting that evening, and that actually is going to be the day that we're going to launch the first installment for the code. So nothing will happen. It will go out to the public that day. We're going to have communications surrounding that. And then we have planned our first public engagement meeting on the first installment on March 2nd at Hannah in the evening time. In running parallel to that will be the advisory committee. They're going to have, as you can see here, their first meeting on February 18th, but that's really going to be for Clarion to go over with them. How is the installment organized? Where are the major changes? What does this look like? How do we read through this? And then they will set their actual working session for March 1st. So, April 1st. So we're going to have a lot going on, a lot of information getting ready to go out. Of course, this is all flexible, dependent on some of what happens with council's action on February 17th, but I don't foresee that that will be problematic. And this no formal decisions are going to be made. In addition to this, we are working on preparing what we're calling some meetings in a box, which will be for myself in lieu of myself and the zoning team in lieu of Clarion to go out to the community, do some more neighborhood level meetings about installment 1 after that March time period. So more to come, and I will be bringing you some more, I think, exciting updates as we go into these first few months of the new year.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for these dates. Are there any questions from council members? My only request is that if you could go ahead and email those dates to us, and then go ahead and put it in on base under this item, just in case. I know it's on your website too, but sometimes that's the place that people find it. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. Yes, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Young.
I was going to say that too, but also I'm really looking forward to this, especially as we continue to talk about housing, missing middle housing, opportunities for our small developers or those that have homes that want to do things with their land. So I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you for that update.
One other item, Council, if I may. March 2nd will be that public meeting at Hannah. We would like to ask if Clarion could provide an update to City Council on March 5th. At your regular meeting then, we're targeting about a 30-minute update so that they too can go over installment 1 with the council. In addition to that, Clarion will still be in town on March 6th. If you would be interested in having meetings with them, I think we're looking at March 4th and March 6th. So if you would like a private session with Clarion to go over some things, I think we've done this when the assessment came out. We've done this at a couple different touch points. I'm going to have Rosemary Hall, my assistant, get with each of you so that we can get you scheduled for that if you have a desire to meet with Clarion as well. So just that way, they can meet with you, but also on March 5th, they can provide an update in front of council and the public as well for those who may have missed the March 2nd meeting.
And Ms. Feely, would that take the place of your normal report?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to add it to the calendar. That will simply replace your report.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
A suggestion, and if Ms. Feely could chime in, perhaps what we do is we
add it and then take the other one off. Okay.
And my suggestion would be, in the fact that this is as significant as it is, it's under staff report, maybe you might want to consider as a council limiting the number of staff reports that day, because if you look, you already have 3 commendations.
Okay.
So, and I don't know what other second reads or other review hearings you might have.
So Ms. Feely, if you want to just email that to my office, I will make that motion next Thursday night.
On the 12th. Okay, excellent. And then lastly on that, in February, I'm actually out of the office on my regular schedule. So I was gonna ask if it would be okay if I provided a written report for my update for February.
Why don't you go ahead and
If
make
not,
a motion?
I can come back on February 19th. Whatever is the pleasure of council.
I'm fine with that. Just again, make a second motion so we can change that to a written report.
Got it. I will do both of those and send them to your office. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you. Okay. Are we done? Have we okayed everything? Okay. Just like to double check, making sure. Okay. So we're gonna do new business. New business. I'm sorry. Mr. Shelby has new business.
I do, Council. I sent you a reminder by email, but I want to bring it to your attention now. Next Tuesday evening, there is a special call workshop meeting that this council has scheduled, Tuesday, January 13th at 5 p.m. downstairs in the Sister Cities room on the first floor. And again, that is a public meeting. It's publicly noticed, but it will not be televised. Public comment is provided for in-person people who remain to the end of the workshop. They can give their comments 3 minutes per speaker. Now, the purpose specifically of this special call workshop, per council's direction, is for City Council to discuss suggestions and priorities that you as a City Council want to forward to the City of Tampa Charter Review Advisory Commission. So that being the case, Council, it starts at 5 o'clock. I'll talk with the chair, Mr. Clendenin, to be able to provide some sort of guidance as to a roadmap. But this, Council, if you want to take full advantage of this in the shortest amount of time, that you come in fully prepared individually with what you wish to bring to the board to discuss as a whole regarding your questions for the Charter Review Commission or the priorities or those areas that you wish to be able to do that. Now, my understanding, or I surmise that at the end of that, that would actually have to be compiled and compressed and presented to you in a final form to come back after the special call workshop for your action. So I just wanted to remind you to please, my suggestion is if it's something you want to share with council, that you have your legislative aides or your office prepare copies to be able to distribute to that and to the clerk and to any other people who might need to have it there. But this is going to require, and of course you've already been previously discussing it, but now is the time in preparation for this committee being formed, and I'll just have you know, just as an aside, that the chair gathered I was present, and so was his legislative aide, Sam, but to gather the facilitator, Mr. Hendrickson, the legal counsel, Mr. Tinkler, and the city clerk liaison, Ms. Siagala, and they met via Teams, introduced each other to themselves, and began the process of moving this forward. So I just want to let you know that. So in order to move what you wish to have, please do take the effort between now and Tuesday night to be able to prepare to present to council so you can actually have this to be a short, productive meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
I don't have anything, but just a comment on that. I ran into Ashley Morrow on the way out earlier. I think she's your and she said she had already watched all of our discussions on this and summarized everything we had said already. So I was very impressed by it.
Okay, Councilman Vieira.
Yes, if I may, I have a quick one and then a not so quick one. I want to do a city council commendation. I was requested by the Gold Star Mothers of Tampa Bay for the mother of the late Tyree Love, who was killed in action on January 17, 2025.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Vieira, a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very much. And Chairwoman Pro Tem, may I have 3 minutes for this? Is that okay? I need to explain something. I just want to make sure it is what it is.
No,
I had sent out, and
this
thank
is
you.
our time.
Yeah, and thank you, because I want to explain something. Hearing over the discussion on the internships that was done by Ms. McKenzie, who's wonderful, and I spoke with her yesterday, and we're lucky to have her, and she's, what I'm going to be talking about, she's doing a great job on. But it's frustrating for me for reasons that I'll talk about. You know, I sent out a memo yesterday on the special needs internship. We're going to call it something different, and where it's been at. I just want to very briefly review the history of this, which will inform my frustration, because you all know me, I'm a very calm person, generally speaking. I don't get easily flustered. The Cuban Hulk doesn't always come out, but here it is. So just very briefly with regards to the special needs internship, it was around September of 2022, 3.5 years ago, that I was at an event from McDonald Training Center and thought, man, this would be something great for the city of Tampa to do. Got support from everybody, Tampa City Council, the administration, and so forth. Proposed it in the budget, it passed. Okay, that was about 3.5 years ago. You know, you fast forward about a year, you know, we follow up, nothing much happens during that time. We appropriated, I think it was about $100,000 for that. You give people time. Things don't always happen immediately. You have whatever, grace, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, etc. So then you fast forward just a little bit, we get a report in July of 2023 to see how it's going. They're in the process of hiring a few people. We've had a couple of interns that have been hired as of right now, and see how it's going. Fast forward a little bit, budget of 2023, we appropriate money again for the special needs internship. April of 2024, it had been about 1.5 years, and I was growing very, very frustrated. So I set up a meeting with some of the folks in the administration and to express my private frustration, because I don't like to go public unless if I first give private opportunity and chance for that. I was assured that things were being taken care of, so forth and so on. That was in April of 2024. You fast forward to July of 2025, and we had received a letter from our friends, numerous places, including our friends over at Pepin, inquiring on the program and my frustration on the lack of progress and different things with this program. We moved forward with it, July of 2025, about 7-8 months ago where we're at. We're at right now, we address it in the budget. Then yesterday, I have a meeting, and I'm told there's a great framework. Ms. McKenzie has come in and just done a great job on putting the program where it needs to be finally. But now I'm told there's no dedicated funding for it. That's awful. That's terrible. It bothers me that the internship program that we talked about, which I second, I'm all for it, has a dedicated funding source, but a program for people with disabilities doesn't have that right now after 3.5 years after it was put in there. We're talking about people who work here in the administration who are good, compassionate, decent, and people with a lot of empathy. People want to get this thing done, but somewhere along the way, it hasn't gone forward like it should. So that's why I'm pushing on this, because I think it's very, very important. So I do have a motion on a couple of things. Number one is to have bi-monthly updates on the special needs program. So we're going to start in person in February 5th. After that, they can be in writing. Okay, I'm not going to make people come here every single month and whatnot on it. So to have bi-monthly updates on the special needs internship program to begin on February 5th. So that's, my motion is going to be 3 parts in one motion, all for February 5th. Number 2 is, I had talked about, we had Karen Clay here. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I only ask that if you want something to be reoccurring, it should probably be a separate motion.
Yes, I'll do that.
So do you want to just do 3 separate motions?
Yeah, sure. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and do the first one, if I may.
Okay,
My
so-
first one, yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a motion from Councilman Vieira on having a monthly or bi-monthly report, and I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. It begins on February 5th.
Yep.
All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to be specific in what that motion was, February 5th in person, right? Next month after that, the first week of each month, it can be in writing, and we'll determine as to what happens February 5th, which I'm sure will be just dandy. Second would be to rename this program the Mike Phillips All Abilities Internship Program, and as part of that February 5th motion, to have staff come back and report on their position on that. I'm sure they'll be supportive, but just out of an abundance.
So I have a motion from Councilman Vieira. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much. And then lastly on that, request that the administration add the disability internship program to the City of Tampa website for the purposes of public engagement. There is an internship page on the site, but this program appears not to be listed on there. And I want that to be done, or strike that, for the administration of the representative to talk to us about their position on that on February 5th as well.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Vieira. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And thank you very much, Council. And again, I'm sorry. What?
I was just going to offer.
Oh, yes,
you know,
ma'am.
we just talked about finding out the budget for adding more people to the internship program. Do you have a number?
So I'll be honest. I mean, I know
Why don't
we've
you
had.
ask for a number? We have extra money. This is literally what we're
So
about to
what I
fund
would
this
say
with.
is this: we have budgeted for $100,000 each year on this. Okay, this is something that is going to take work on the part of people. We have great partners through the McDonald's Training Center, the Grow Group, and different folks who are just waiting to help us with this. So my position would be, again, I'm not unreasonable. $100,000, not 100,000 interns, $100,000, whatever that will purchase or whatever that will do. Now, again, there presently is not a funding source. So I'll actually make another motion, if I may, with that, which is by February 5th, that we be advised on a funding source for that. It's $100,000 in this huge budget. Please, we can find that.
So I have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate, and again, a lot of people in the disability community on this issue are watching because they know about this program. Do you know how many emails and calls and inquiries I get from parents going, when's that program going to begin? Because they want their kid to be able to benefit. And by the way, again, I'll say this in closing, everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to do this. I remember Mayor Castro coming to me when she first got elected, talking about her heart for the All Abilities Park. Everybody has a great heart on this. Just somewhere along the way, it fell aside. But now with Miss McKenzie, we're back, and with the dog, I will be quiet. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Young.
Okay, so I have two motions that I would like to make. One, the City of Tampa Black History Committee will be hosting their 38th annual City of Tampa Black History Celebration on Monday, February 6th at our beautiful convention center. It is going to be a community event. It's open to the public. And the theme this year will be honoring our veterans, celebrating 250 years of service and strength. And this will be an opportunity for us to commemorate our nation's anniversary by recognizing the men and women, living and deceased, who have kept America strong through serving in the United States Armed Forces. Our keynote address will be delivered by our very own Tampa Fire Chief and U.S. Navy veteran, Ms. Chief Barbara Tripp. And so I would like to make a motion to invite City of Tampa Black History Committee, Inc., to come before Tampa City Council on January 22nd, 2026, under ceremonial and/or presentations for the purpose of formally inviting City Council and providing information on the 38th Annual City of Tampa Black History Celebration.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilwoman Young. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
And also in keeping with, I feel like it was a theme for the day, amazing women.
Yes.
I would also move to make a motion to present an off-site commendation for the 28th Annual City of Tampa Women's History Month celebration to be held on March 5th, 2026 at the Tampa Bay History Center.
Excellent. Motion from Councilwoman Young, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Councilman Maniscalco.
So I don't think I can make this motion. I have to wait for next week's CRA, but I'd like to do, and this is not conventional, a commendation at a CRA meeting in February. I make that motion at CRA. Is that correct?
Is it a CRA motion or a city council motion?
It has nothing to do. It's just honoring the anniversary of an organization, and it's on a Thursday in February.
I guess my suggestion is if you want city council to do a commendation, you could do that and present it at the CRA if that's the CRA's
What do you think? Is that fine?
Sure.
So I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation at the February CRA meeting, because that date is the date of the founding of the NAACP going back to 1909.
Excellent.
And it is Black History
The 12th,
Month.
February 12th.
February 12th, and I'd like to do a a presentation of a commendation at the beginning of that meeting because it's that specific date, and I want it to align with the anniversary.
My suggestion is this, council, to make that motion to have the commendation prepared for delivery on that date, but to also make that motion when you appear as the CRA to make sure it
Okay.
appears on your March agenda.
So the motion is that we have
gonna
that
present it at the
commendation
CRA.
present, present that commendation on February 12th, coming from City Council, but I'm gonna also bring this up at the CRA meeting so it's immortalized or
Great.
memorialized.
So I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco. I have a second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
If I can, just clarify that. Basically, what you're going to do next week is to add that commendation
calendar.
presentation
To the
to
calendar.
your agenda for
Yes.
March, for the
Yes.
CRA.
Yes.
Because it is the founding of the national organization from
Okay.
1909.
Okay. Councilman Miranda? Nothing. Okay. Chair Clendenin?
Wow, what a day. I tell you what, I am so thankful I did not come in. I was feeling bad. I would have just been collapsed up there on the dais today. I just wanted to do just a little bit of a recap. I know Marty Shelby already gave you a briefing about the Charter Review Commission. They are empowered to start. They've got the tools they need. They're going to organize the first meeting, and we're trying to squeeze in 2 meetings in January. It might only be 1, depending on their schedule. Probably more than likely than not, the Sister City Room, and very excited to kick off the group. Everybody's ready and willing, and I think we're going to have looking at the list of everybody you nominated and mayor's nominations. I think we've got a good team put together, and of course the facilitator and the attorney and our support from our clerk staff. I think we're really set to have a substantive discussion about the charter and look forward to a great product coming out of that. It's really very, very, a lot of work behind the scenes, but I think it's going in the right direction.
Thank you. I recognize Chair Pro Tem Hurtak.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I am very excited as well. So Ashley went and watched. I gave Bobby Creighton 2 3-inch binders from our old days on the Charter Review Commission. He's already read them, organized them. So yeah, it's really awesome to see people really interested and excited about this.
Hey, Bobby, you're a nerd.
Yes, we nominated nerds. Yes, that's fine if you want to call. So, but then I'm going to take that title too because I enjoyed the same thing. So I have a motion for the University of South Florida to make a 15-minute presentation on the post-storm tree canopy assessment during the April 16th, 2026 City Council regular meeting under staff reports and unfinished business for a time certain of right after lunch.
We have a motion from Chair Pro Tem Hurtak, second Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, ma'am. Anything else?
Nope.
I have a motion to receive and file from me.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco to to receive and file, and I have a second from Councilmember Miranda. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
Give everybody my regrets tonight. I'm not going to
Okay.
be there, but
No,
I'm
no,
really missing it.